The alien beauty I found deep in the Amazon jungle wasn't just a discovery. It was the key to humanity's survival or extinction. As I hacked through dense foliage, sweat dripping down my face, I never expected to stumble upon a sight that would change everything. A metallic glint caught my eye. I pushed aside a curtain of vines to reveal a clearing littered with twisted wreckage. My heart raced as I took in the unmistakable form of a crashed spacecraft. This was no terrestrial vehicle. Its sleek lines and iridescent hull spoke of technology far beyond our own. I approached cautiously, years of scientific training warring with primal fear. The ship had cleaved a deep furrow in the earth, scattering debris across the jungle floor. As I neared the shattered cockpit, movement inside made me freeze. A figure emerged, graceful despite obvious injuries. I gasped as I took in her appearance, slim build, iridescent blue skin that seemed to shimmer, and eyes of liquid silver. She was unmistakably alien and yet hauntingly beautiful. Our eyes met. I saw a wariness there, tinged with curiosity. I raised my hand slowly, trying to convey that I meant no harm. "I'm Patrick," I said softly. "Patrick Mitchell. I'm a biologist. Are you hurt? Can I help?" She tilted her head, considering. Then she spoke, her voice musical and strange. "I am Petra. My ship. Damaged. Danger here." I nodded, glancing around the clearing. We were exposed, vulnerable. Whatever brought her ship down could still be out there. And who knew what other jungle predators might be drawn to the crash site? "We need to find shelter, clean water," I said. "I have supplies at my camp. Will you come with me?" Petra hesitated, then nodded. As we made our way through the undergrowth, I found myself hyper-aware of her alien presence. Every graceful movement, every shimmer of her skin in the dappled sunlight, captivated me. I had to remind myself to stay alert for dangers. What I didn't know then was that the true danger walked beside me. Petra was no mere crash survivor, but an Iridian spy sent to assess Earth for potential colonization. As we trekked through the steaming jungle, an interstellar game of cat and mouse was just beginning. Our uneasy alliance was soon tested. The distant thrum of helicopter rotors sent us diving for cover. A human military team crashed through the foliage, led by a hard-faced man I would come to know as Colonel Hartman. Their goal: capture the alien visitor at any cost. As we crouched in the shadows, Petra's silver eyes met mine. In that moment, I saw fear, vulnerability, and something else. A spark of connection that transcended our vast differences. I made a split-second decision that would alter the course of two civilizations. I took her hand and whispered, "This way. I know a hidden path." What I didn't realize was that I was leading us both into a tangled web of loyalty, betrayal, and a love that could either save our worlds or destroy them. For in Petra's possession was technology beyond imagining, the power to rescue humanity from looming catastrophe or to erase us from existence. As we vanished into the depths of the jungle, the fate of two species rested in our hands. And I, Patrick Mitchell, was about to be caught between my duty to mankind and my growing feelings for an impossibly beautiful alien spy. As we vanished into the depths of the jungle, the sound of helicopter rotors faded behind us. Petra's hand felt cool in mine, her slim fingers intertwining with my own as we navigated the treacherous terrain. The lush foliage provided cover, but also presented its own set of challenges. "We need to move faster," I whispered, acutely aware of the danger at our heels. Petra nodded, her silver eyes scanning the environment with an intensity that spoke volumes about her training. As we pushed deeper into the Amazon, I couldn't help but marvel at Petra's adaptability. Her iridescent blue skin seemed to shift and change, blending seamlessly with the dappled light filtering through the canopy. One moment she appeared as vibrant as a tropical flower. The next she was nearly invisible against the backdrop of leaves and vines. "Your skin," I breathed, momentarily forgetting our predicament. "It's incredible." Petra's lips curved in a small smile. "Adaptive camouflage. It helps us survive in diverse environments." We pressed on, the humid air clinging to our skin like a second layer. Hours passed, marked only by the gradual shift of light through the trees. Just as exhaustion began to set in, we stumbled upon something that made us both freeze in our tracks. Rising before us, half swallowed by the jungle, stood an ancient Mayan temple. Its weathered stone steps were choked with vines, moss carpeting the once smooth surfaces. For a moment, we simply stared, the weight of history pressing down upon us. "This wasn't on any of my maps," I murmured, scientist curiosity warring with the need for caution. Petra tilted her head, studying the structure with an intensity that sent a chill down my spine. "There's something familiar about this place." We approached carefully, alert for any signs of danger. As we climbed the worn steps, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were crossing a threshold into something far bigger than ourselves. The temple's interior was cool and dark, a welcome respite from the oppressive jungle heat. As our eyes adjusted, intricate carvings emerged from the gloom. I traced my fingers over the stone, feeling the weight of countless centuries beneath my touch. "Patrick," Petra called, her voice echoing slightly in the chamber. "Look at this." I joined her, and together we stared at a wall covered in hieroglyphs. My breath caught in my throat as I took in the images depicted there. Human figures stood side by side with beings that could only be described as Iridian. "This can't be possible," I whispered, mind racing. "These glyphs are thousands of years old." Petra's expression was unreadable. "Perhaps your people and mine have crossed paths before." The implications were staggering. I turned to Petra, questions burning on my tongue, only to find her much closer than I expected. In the dim light, her silver eyes seemed to glow, drawing me in. The air between us crackled with tension, and I found myself leaning forward, drawn by an inexorable force. Our moment was shattered by the distant thrum of rotors. Reality came crashing back, and we sprang apart. "They've found us," Petra hissed, all business once more. Desperation fueled our search for an escape route. As the sound of approaching helicopters grew louder, my hand brushed against a section of wall that felt different. With a grinding noise that set my teeth on edge, a hidden door swung open, revealing a dark passage. We plunged into the unknown, the passage leading us deeper into the earth. The air grew damp, the sound of rushing water growing louder with each step. Suddenly, the narrow corridor opened into a vast cavern, bisected by an underground river. "We have to go in," I said, eyeing the swift current with trepidation. Petra nodded, already moving towards the water's edge. "Follow my lead." We dove into the icy flow, the current immediately sweeping us away from the sounds of pursuit. As we were carried through the darkness, Petra's hand found mine once more, guiding me through the subterranean labyrinth. To my amazement, Petra seemed entirely at ease in the water. Her movements were fluid, effortless, as if she were born to this environment. "How are you doing this?" I gasped during a brief moment when we surfaced in an air pocket. "Iridians are amphibious," she explained, her voice carrying a hint of pride. "We can breathe both air and water." Before I could process this new information, we were plunging back into the current. As we twisted and turned through the underground river system, the walls of the cavern began to glow. Bioluminescent organisms painted the rock in shades of blue and green, creating a ghostly, beautiful landscape. For a moment, I forgot about the danger, lost in the wonder of this hidden world. Petra's hand squeezed mine, a silent acknowledgement of the beauty surrounding us. Eventually, The river deposited us in a small, secluded grotto. We dragged ourselves onto the shore, breathing heavily. As I lay there, trying to catch my breath, I realized that we had escaped for now. But our relief was short-lived. As we made our way out of the grotto and back into the jungle, we stumbled upon a sight that made my blood run cold. Nestled in a small clearing, partially hidden by the dense foliage, was what could only be described as an alien outpost. Two figures stood outside the sleek, otherworldly structure. Their blue skin and silver eyes marked them as Iridians, but their postures were rigid, alert. They had spotted us. Petra's grip on my arm tightened. "Zar and Keela," she whispered. "Scout team." The male Iridian, Zar, I assumed, stepped forward, his expression hard. "Petra," he called out, his voice carrying a note of accusation. "Explain yourself." And the human. I felt Petra tense beside me, her conflicting loyalties warring within her. The fate of two worlds hung in the balance, and I realized with a sinking feeling that the game had changed entirely. As we stood there, locked in a tense standoff, the jungle around us seemed to hold its breath. In the distance, I could hear the faint sound of helicopters, a reminder that we were caught between two forces, each potentially devastating to the other. Petra's eyes met mine, a silent question in their silver depths. Whatever came next would shape the future of human-Iridian relations, and possibly the fate of Earth itself. The weight of that responsibility settled over us like a shroud as we faced the Iridian scouts, neither side willing to make the first move. The tense standoff stretched on, the humid air thick with unspoken threats. Patrick's mind raced, acutely aware of the precarious position they found themselves in. The distant thrum of helicopter rotors grew louder, a stark reminder that time was running out. In that moment, Patrick made a decision that would alter the course of history. He stepped forward, placing himself between the Iridian scouts and the direction of the approaching human forces. His heart pounded in his chest, but his voice remained steady as he addressed both sides. "Wait," he called out, hands raised in a gesture of peace. "We have an opportunity here, a chance to avoid conflict and work towards understanding." Zar's silver eyes narrowed, his posture rigid. "You speak of peace, human, yet your military approaches with weapons drawn." Patrick nodded, acknowledging the truth in Zar's words. "I know, but I also know that neither side wants a war. Let me try to negotiate a truce." Petra stepped forward, her cool hand brushing against Patrick's arm. "I support this," she said, her musical voice carrying to both her fellow Iridians and the human forces now emerging from the jungle. Colonel Hartman strode into the clearing, his face a mask of tension. His eyes darted between Patrick, the Iridians, and the alien structure behind them. "Dr. Mitchell," he barked, "step away from the hostiles." Patrick stood his ground. "They're not hostiles, Colonel. They're visitors, and we have a chance to make first contact peacefully." As Patrick spoke, Petra seized a moment of distraction. She slipped into the outpost, her fingers flying over the advanced communication array. With practiced ease, she composed and sent an encoded message to the incoming Iridian fleet, urging caution and emphasizing the need for further study before any colonization attempts. Outside, the delicate balance held. Patrick's words seemed to have struck a chord with both sides, creating a momentary ceasefire. The tension in the air remained palpable, but the immediate threat of violence had receded. Suddenly, a new voice cut through the clearing. Fascinating, truly remarkable. All eyes turned to see a woman emerge from the jungle, followed by a small team of individuals carrying scientific equipment. Her dark eyes gleamed with curiosity as she took in the scene before her. "Dr. Elena Rodriguez," she introduced herself, her voice tinged with excitement. "I'm a xenobiologist. We've been tracking unusual energy signatures in this region for weeks." Colonel Hartman frowned. "This is a restricted area, Doctor." You shouldn't be here. Dr. Rodriguez waved away his concern. With all due respect, Colonel, I believe my team's expertise could be invaluable in this situation. She turned to the Iridians, her gaze lingering on their iridescent skin and silver eyes. We have an unprecedented opportunity for scientific collaboration here. Czar and Keela exchanged glances, their rigid postures softening slightly in the face of the scientist's obvious fascination. Patrick saw an opening and seized it. Dr. Rodriguez is right, he said. What if we proposed a joint research initiative, a chance for humans and Iridians to work together, to learn from each other? The idea hung in the air, its potential undeniable. Even Colonel Hartman seemed to be considering it, his tactical mind no doubt weighing the benefits against the risks. As discussions began in earnest, Patrick found himself at the center of an impromptu diplomatic mission. His unique position, trusted by Petra, respected by the human scientists, and able to communicate with both sides, made him an invaluable mediator. However, the delicate negotiations were soon interrupted by an urgent alert from Dr. Rodriguez's team. The scientist's face paled as she read the data on her tablet. The energy readings we've been tracking, she said, her voice tight with concern. They're not just unusual. They're symptomatic of a much larger problem. The Amazon rainforest is showing signs of rapid, unnatural degradation. The news sent a ripple of tension through the group. The implications were staggering. The Amazon was vital to Earth's ecosystem. Its loss could trigger a cascade of environmental disasters. Czar stepped forward, his silver eyes intense. We may be able to help, he said, his voice low. The Iridians possess advanced terraforming technology. It could potentially reverse the damage. Colonel Hartman's eyes narrowed. And why would you offer this help? He asked, suspicion evident in his tone. Because, Petra interjected, emerging from the outpost, we understand the value of a living world. And because we seek peaceful coexistence, not conflict. As the group debated the implications of this offer, Patrick found his gaze drawn to Petra. Their eyes met, and in that moment, the connection between them seemed to deepen, transcending the boundaries of their species. The moment was shattered by a new alert from the Iridian outpost. Petra's eyes widened as she read the message. The fleet, she said, her voice tight. They've entered Earth atmosphere. They're coming. The news sent a jolt of urgency through the group. The delicate balance they had achieved was now threatened by the arrival of the Iridian fleet. As tension mounted, Patrick realized that the next few moments could determine the fate of both their species. He looked at Petra, then at the diverse group of humans and Iridians around them. In their faces, he saw fear, hope, and the potential for something extraordinary. With the Iridian fleet descending and the environmental crisis looming, Patrick knew they had to find a way to turn this potential conflict into an opportunity for unprecedented cooperation. The jungle seemed to hold its breath as Patrick stepped forward once more, ready to make another attempt at bridging the gap between two worlds. The fate of Earth and the future of human-Iridian relations hung in the balance, waiting for the next crucial decision. Words. The fate of Earth and the future of human-Iridian relations hung in the balance, waiting for the next crucial moment to unfold. Suddenly, the air above them shimmered with an otherworldly light. The Iridian fleet had arrived, their ships breaking through the cloud cover in a dazzling display of advanced technology. The sleek, organic vessels pulsed with an inner radiance, unlike anything humanity had ever witnessed. Patrick's heart raced as he realized the gravity of the situation. He turned to Petra, their eyes meeting in a silent exchange of purpose and understanding. Without a word, they both knew what needed to be done. We need to guide them to a safe landing zone, Patrick said, his voice steady despite the tension coursing through his body. Away from the human military's position. Petra nodded, her silver eyes gleaming with persistence. There's a clearing about 1 kilometer from here. It should be large enough for the ships to land. Colonel Hartman, his face etched with concern, stepped forward. "Dr. Mitchell, are you certain about this? We're dealing with an unknown alien force here." Patrick met the colonel's gaze. "It's our best chance to avoid immediate conflict. Sir, we need to show them we're willing to cooperate." Dr. Rodriguez chimed in, her scientific curiosity evident in her voice. "I agree with Dr. Mitchell. This is an unprecedented opportunity for peaceful first contact." As the group quickly formulated a plan, Patrick and Petra prepared for their trek through the dense jungle. The others would remain at the outpost, using the advanced communication array to broadcast a message of peace to both the incoming Iridian ships and the approaching human reinforcements. As Patrick and Petra set off, the humid air of the rainforest clung to their skin. The recent intimate moment they had shared deeply affected on their minds, adding a layer of unspoken tension to their already complex relationship. They moved swiftly through the underbrush, their path illuminated by the bioluminescent flora that seemed to have spread from the original crash site. Patrick's mind raced with the implications of this alien influence on Earth's ecosystem, but he forced himself to focus on the task at hand. Upon reaching the clearing, they were struck by the awe-inspiring sight of the Iridian ships breaking through the last wisps of cloud cover. The vessels moved with an almost ethereal grace, their hulls shimmering with colors that seemed to shift and change with each passing second. Patrick fumbled in his pack for the makeshift signal flare he had hastily assembled. With a deep breath, he ignited it, sending a bright plume of red smoke into the air. The lead ship, significantly larger than the others, immediately adjusted its course towards their position. As the massive vessel descended, the air around them thrummed with energy. Leaves and debris swirled in the downdraft, and Patrick found himself instinctively moving closer to Petra. Her cool hand found his, a gesture of solidarity in the face of the unknown. The ship's landing was almost silent, a testament to the advanced technology of the Iridians. As the entry ramp lowered, Patrick and Petra stood their ground, hearts pounding in anticipation. A tall, imposing figure emerged from the ship. His blue skin seemed to ripple with an inner light, and his silver eyes swept over the clearing before settling on Patrick and Petra. He moved with a fluid grace that spoke of both power and control. "I am Admiral Zan," he announced, his voice carrying a musical quality that Patrick found both alien and oddly soothing. "Leader of the Iridian Expeditionary Force. Who speaks for Earth?" Patrick stepped forward, acutely aware of the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. "Admiral Zan, I'm Dr. Patrick Mitchell, and this is Petra. We're here to escort you to our outpost where negotiations can begin." Zan's silver eyes narrowed slightly. "Negotiations? We were unaware that our presence was expected." Petra spoke up, her voice carrying a note of urgency. "The situation has evolved, Admiral. It's crucial that we return to the outpost immediately to prevent any misunderstandings." As Zen signaled for a small contingent to accompany them, Patrick couldn't help but feel a mix of hope and apprehension. The future of two worlds now rested on their ability to foster understanding between their species. Their return journey, however, was far from straightforward. As they navigated through the dense foliage, they encountered an unexpected obstacle. A massive sinkhole had opened up in their path, the earth giving way to reveal a yawning chasm. "The environmental degradation," Patrick muttered, his scientific mind quickly assessing the situation. "It's accelerating faster than we anticipated." Admiral Zen stepped forward, his expression unreadable. "This is why we came," he said, his voice low. "Our world faces similar challenges. We believe that Earth's biodiversity, combined with our technology, could be the key to saving both our planets." As they skirted the edge of the sinkhole, taking a winding detour, Patrick noticed something extraordinary. The vegetation in this area was unlike anything he had ever seen. Alien flora intertwined with native plants, creating hybrid species that pulse with an otherworldly energy. Fascinating, he breathed, his fingers brushing against a leaf that seemed to shimmer with an inner light. The interaction between Earth's ecosystem and elements from your crash site. It's creating entirely new forms of life. Admiral Zan's interest was piqued. You believe our biologies could coexist? Before Patrick could respond, Petra's communicator crackled to life. The voice of Dr. Rodriguez came through, filled with excitement and urgency. Petra, you need to get back here immediately, she said. The UN peacekeeping force has arrived, led by Ambassador Bryant. And you won't believe what we've discovered about the plant life you're seeing. It could be the key to everything. As they quickened their pace, Patrick's mind raced with possibilities. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges and potential conflict. But as he glanced at Petra, then at Admiral Zan, he felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps, in the face of shared adversity, they could forge a new future for both their species. The outpost came into view, now a hive of activity with the arrival of the UN forces. Patrick took a deep breath, steeling himself for the complex negotiations that lay ahead. Whatever happened next would shape the fate of two worlds, and he was determined to see it through for the benefit of both species. As they approached the outpost, Patrick couldn't help but notice the subtle changes in Petra's demeanor. Her silver eyes darted between him and Admiral Zan, and her posture seemed more rigid than usual. The moment they entered the clearing, the atmosphere shifted palpably. Ambassador Bryant, a tall woman with salt and pepper hair and sharp green eyes, stood at the center of a group of UN officials. Her gaze immediately locked onto Patrick and Petra, a knowing smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Dr. Mitchell, Petra, she called out, her voice carrying across the clearing. I believe congratulations are in order. Patrick felt his heart skip a beat as he realized the implications of her words. Somehow, their relationship had become public knowledge. He glanced at Petra, who met his gaze with a mix of apprehension and grit. Ambassador Bryant continued, her voice taking on a more formal tone. In light of recent developments, I propose we hold a symbolic ceremony to celebrate the union of our two species. It could be a powerful gesture of goodwill and cooperation. Colonel Hartman, standing nearby with his arms crossed, let out a barely audible sigh. While I have my reservations, he said, his voice gruff, I can see the potential diplomatic value in such an event. Admiral Zan, who had been observing the exchange with keen interest, stepped forward. This is unexpected, he said, his musical voice tinged with curiosity. But I am intrigued by the idea. The Iridians will participate in this ceremony. As the group began to discuss the details of the proposed event, Dr. Rodriguez burst out of the research tent, her face flushed with urgency. We have a situation, she announced, holding up a tablet displaying satellite imagery. The environmental degradation of the Amazon is accelerating at an alarming rate. The images on the screen showed vast swathes of the rainforest overtaken by a strange, shimmering growth. Patrick recognized it immediately as the hybrid flora they had encountered earlier. The hybrid plants, he muttered, leaning in for a closer look. They're spreading faster than we anticipated. Dr. Rodriguez nodded grimly. We need to understand and control the spread immediately. It could either save or destroy the entire ecosystem. As if on cue, a team of Iridian scientists emerged from one of the ships, led by a tall, willowy figure with iridescent blue skin. We have been monitoring the situation, the lead scientist said, her voice melodious yet filled with concern. We believe our expertise could be valuable in this crisis. Ambassador Bryant, quick to seize the opportunity, gestured for the human and Iridian scientists to convene. By all means, she said, we need every resource at our disposal to tackle this problem. As the scientific teams hurried off to begin their collaborative efforts, Patrick found himself at the center of attention once more. Whispers and pointed looks from both humans and Iridians made it clear that news of his relationship with Petra had spread like wildfire. A group of human soldiers nearby eyed him with suspicion, while a cluster of Iridians regarded him with a mixture of curiosity and disdain. Patrick felt the weight of their judgment pressing down on him, but he stood his ground, drawing strength from Petra's presence at his side. Suddenly, a commotion erupted at the edge of the clearing. A small group of human military personnel, led by a stern-faced man Patrick recognized as Major Donovan, pushed their way through the crowd. "This has gone far enough," Donovan shouted, his face red with anger. "We can't allow these aliens to corrupt our people and our planet." Before anyone could react, Donovan and his men raised their weapons, aiming at the nearest Iridian ship. The air crackled with tension as both sides reached for their arms, teetering on the brink of open conflict. In that crucial moment, Patrick knew he had to act. Drawing on his knowledge of the jungle and the insight he'd gained into Iridian technology, he formulated a plan. "Petra," he whispered urgently, "I need you to create a distraction. Can you use your bioluminescence to blind them temporarily?" Petra nodded, understanding immediately. As she began to glow with an intense, pulsating light, Patrick slipped away, circling behind Donovan's group. The flash of Petra's bioluminescence caught the rogue soldiers off guard, giving Patrick the opening he needed. He sprinted forward, tackling Donovan from behind and sending them both sprawling to the ground. In the chaos that ensued, a joint team of humans and Iridians, following Patrick's lead, managed to subdue the rest of the saboteurs. The potential disaster had been averted, but the incident left everyone shaken. As the dust settled, Admiral Zen approached Patrick, his silver eyes gleaming with newfound respect. "Your quick thinking and bravery have prevented a catastrophe," he said. "Perhaps there is more to this union of our species than I first realized." The Admiral paused, seeming to consider something carefully before continuing. "Dr. Mitchell, I would like to extend an invitation to you. We offer you the opportunity to visit our home world as part of a cultural exchange program." Patrick's heart raced at the prospect, but Zen wasn't finished. "However, there is a condition," the Admiral added. "To survive in our atmosphere, you would need to undergo genetic modification." The weight of this offer hung in the air between them. Patrick turned to Petra, searching her face for guidance. To his surprise, she stepped forward, her voice clear and determined. "If Patrick is willing to undergo such a change for my people," she declared, "then I volunteer to undergo a similar procedure to live comfortably on Earth." Their mutual willingness to adapt for each other sent a ripple of murmurs through the gathered crowd. It was a powerful symbol of the potential for human-Iridian coexistence, one that would not go unnoticed. As news of these developments began to spread beyond the confines of the Amazon, Patrick and Petra found themselves at the center of a global shift in perception. Their story, intertwined with the promise of solving environmental crises through interspecies cooperation, captured the imagination of people worldwide. Yet, even as supporters of human-Iridian collaboration organized demonstrations in major cities across the globe, a new challenge loomed on the horizon. Reports began to filter in of a coalition of Earth's most powerful nations, led by the charismatic President Yamamura, expressing grave concerns about the rapid pace of integration. Patrick and Petra exchanged a look of drive. They knew their journey was not nearly finished, and the path ahead would be fraught with challenges. But as they stood together, surrounded by the lush, changing landscape of the Amazon, they felt ready to face whatever came next, not just for themselves, but for the future of both their species. As they stood together, surrounded by the lush, changing landscape of the Amazon, they felt ready to face whatever came next, not just for themselves, but for the future of both their worlds. Little did they know how quickly that future would arrive. Within days, news of their relationship and the potential for human-Iridian cooperation had spread like wildfire across the globe. Social media exploded with hashtags supporting their union, while protesters took to the streets in major cities, holding signs that read "Love Knows No Species" and "United for Earth and Iridia." As Patrick and Petra found themselves thrust into the spotlight, Admiral Zen approached them with a proposition that would change everything. "Dr. Mitchell, Petra," he said, his silver eyes gleaming with grit, "I have a proposal that could turn the tide of public opinion and showcase the true potential of our alliance." Patrick raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What did you have in mind, Admiral?" Zan's voice took on a note of excitement as he outlined his plan. "A joint human-Iridian expedition to a remote Pacific island. We'll establish a prototype colony there, demonstrating the benefits of our cooperation in a controlled environment." Petra's eyes widened at the implications. "A bold move, Admiral. But how do we ensure both sides agree to such an undertaking?" As if on cue, Ambassador Bryan joined their conversation, her sharp green eyes alight with interest. "I believe I can help with that," she said, her voice carrying the weight of her diplomatic experience. "The UN is prepared to support this initiative, but we'll need to involve all key players to make it work." Over the next few days, a flurry of negotiations took place. President Yamamura, initially skeptical, agreed to the expedition on the condition that Colonel Hartman would lead a contingent of human military personnel. The UN, for its part, insisted on sending a team of international observers to ensure transparency. As preparations for the expedition began in earnest, Dr. Rodriguez burst into the command center, her face flushed with excitement. "Patrick, Petra, I've made a breakthrough with the hybrid plants." She quickly pulled up a series of complex diagrams on a nearby screen. "These plants have the potential to absorb greenhouse gases and produce oxygen at rates we've never seen before. It could be the key to solving both Earth's climate crisis and the environmental issues on the Iridian home world." Patrick's mind raced with the possibilities. "This is incredible, Elena, but implementing this on a global scale would require extensive cooperation between our species," Petra finished, her silver eyes meeting Patrick's, "and access to Iridian terraforming technology." As the reality of their tasks settled in, Patrick and Petra found themselves at the center of a whirlwind of activity. They were selected to lead the scientific team on the expedition, a choice that came with its own set of challenges. "To ensure your survival in diverse environments, we'll need to enhance your biology," Dr. Rodriguez explained as she prepared them for a series of medical procedures. "We'll be combining the best of human medical knowledge with Iridian biotechnology." The procedures were intense and often uncomfortable, but as Patrick and Petra emerged from the final treatment, they felt a newfound connection to each other and their surroundings. Their senses seemed sharper, their bodies more attuned to the environment and each other. Finally, the day of departure arrived. The expedition ship, aptly named Unity, stood ready in the harbor, a marvel of human and Iridian engineering. As Patrick and Petra boarded, they couldn't help but feel a sense of awe at the sleek design that seamlessly blended both species' technologies. The journey across the Pacific was far from smooth sailing. Severe storms battered the ship, testing the limits of its hybrid design. Equipment malfunctions forced human and Iridian crew members to work side by side, improvising solutions on the fly. During a particularly rough night, as Patrick and Petra worked to stabilize a failing life support system, they overheard a heated conversation between two human crew members. "I'm telling you, this whole mission is a mistake," one of them hissed. "We can't trust these aliens. They'll turn on us the first chance they get." Patrick's heart sank as he recognized the voice of Ezra Kane, a last-minute addition to the crew whose presence had always made him uneasy. He caught Petra's eye, and without a word, they both knew they would need to keep a close watch on Kane and his associates. As the days passed, more incidents occurred that couldn't be explained by mere chance or the challenges of the journey. Vital supplies went missing, communication systems mysteriously malfunctioned, and rumors of Iridian duplicity began to spread among the human crew. Patrick and Petra found themselves working tirelessly not just on their scientific duties, but also on maintaining morale and uncovering the source of the sabotage. Their enhanced biology proved invaluable, allowing them to communicate almost telepathically in crucial moments and sense dangers before they fully materialized. As they neared their destination, the ship's sensors picked up an anomaly beneath the ocean's surface. The entire crew gathered on the bridge as holographic displays flickered to life, revealing the outline of a massive structure hidden in the depths. "That's not natural," Colonel Hartman muttered, his brow furrowed in concentration. Admiral Zen stepped forward, his silver eyes wide with surprise. "Nor is it of Iridian origin. This structure predates our presence on Earth by millennia." The implications of this discovery sent shockwaves through the expedition. As Unity approached the island that would be their new home, the crew buzzed with theories about the underwater structure and what it might mean for the history of both their species. The island itself was a paradise of lush tropical vegetation and pristine beaches. As they began the process of establishing the colony, Patrick and Petra threw themselves into their work, overseeing the integration of human and Iridian technologies to create sustainable living systems. The hybrid plants developed by Dr. Rodriguez thrived in the island's environment, growing at an astonishing rate and already showing signs of improving the local air quality. For a brief moment, it seemed as though their mission might succeed beyond their wildest dreams. But as night fell on their third day on the island, alarms blared throughout the partially constructed colony. Patrick and Petra raced to the control center, only to find chaos erupting around them. Screens flickered with warning messages as system after system began to fail. "It's a coordinated attack," Colonel Hartman shouted over the din. "Someone's trying to take down our entire infrastructure." In the midst of the confusion, Patrick caught a glimpse of Ezra Kane slipping away from the crowd, a satisfied smirk on his face. Without hesitation, Patrick grabbed Petra's hand and pulled her after him. "We can't let him get away," Patrick said urgently. "He's behind us. I'm sure of it." As they pursued Kane into the dense jungle interior of the island, the sounds of the colony in crisis faded behind them. The enhanced senses granted by their medical procedures allowed them to track Kane's path through the undergrowth, but the terrain was treacherous and unfamiliar. Suddenly, Petra pulled Patrick to a stop, her silver eyes wide with alarm. "Look," she whispered, pointing to a faint glow emanating from a hidden crevice in a nearby cliff face. As they cautiously approached, they realized they were standing before the entrance to a long-hidden structure. The architecture was unlike anything they had seen before, with elements of both Earth and Iridian design blended in a way that spoke of ancient contact between their species. Patrick and Petra exchanged a look of wonder and tenacity. They knew that within this hidden outpost lay not only the key to saving their colony from Kane's sabotage, but also the potential to rewrite the history of human-Iridian interactions. With one last glance back toward the distant lights of the colony, they stepped into the unknown, ready to face whatever secrets the ancient structure might hold. As they stepped into the dimly lit corridor, the air around them seemed to hum with latent energy. Ancient glyphs adorned the walls, their faint luminescence casting eerie shadows that danced in the periphery of their vision. Patrick's enhanced senses tingled as they moved deeper into the structure. "Petra, look at this," he whispered, running his hand along a panel covered in intricate symbols. "These markings, they're a blend of Earth and Iridian scripts." Petra's silver eyes widened as she examined the glyphs. "This confirms it. Our people were here long ago." As they progressed, the corridor opened into a vast chamber filled with dormant machinery. At its center stood a towering obelisk, pulsing with a faint blue light. Patrick approached it cautiously, his scientific curiosity overriding his caution. "It looks like some kind of control interface," he mused, reaching out to touch its smooth surface. The moment his fingers made contact, the obelisk flared to life. Holographic displays burst into existence around them, filling the air with streams of data and three-dimensional star maps. Petra gasped as she recognized the information scrolling before her eyes. "Patrick, this is incredible. It's a complete historical record of Iridian visits to Earth. They've been studying humanity for thousands of years." As they pored over the data, the implications of their discovery began to sink in. The Iridians had established research stations across the planet, observing and occasionally guiding human development. The underwater structure they had detected earlier was just one of many such outposts. Their awe was short-lived, however. Without warning, a piercing alarm echoed through the chamber. The obelisk's light shifted from blue to an urgent red, and a mechanical voice spoke in an ancient Iridian dialect. Petra's face paled as she translated. "It's alerting the Iridian home world to our presence. We've triggered some kind of automatic response." Before they could react, the chamber began to hum with increasing intensity. Panels slid open along the walls, revealing banks of machinery that had lain dormant for millennia. As systems began to power up, the air crackled with energy. Patrick grabbed Petra's arm, pulling her towards the exit. "We need to warn the others. This much power could have unforeseen consequences." They sprinted back through the corridors, the structure around them thrumming with awakening energy. As they emerged from the hidden entrance, a blinding flash lit up the night sky. A shockwave of energy rippled outward, and suddenly, all their electronic devices went dead. An electromagnetic pulse, Patrick realized with growing dread. The colony's defenses. His words were cut short by the distant sound of explosions. Through the trees, they could see flashes of weapons fired near the colony's perimeter. Petra's enhanced hearing picked up the chaos of battle. "It's Kane. He's using the blackout to launch his attack." They raced back towards the colony, their altered biology allowing them to navigate the treacherous jungle terrain with preternatural speed and agility. As they approached the outskirts of the settlement, they were met by Colonel Hartman, his face grim in the flickering light of the fires. "Dr. Mitchell, Petra," he nodded curtly. "Kane and his extremists are hitting us hard. With our defensive systems down, we're vulnerable." Patrick quickly explained their discovery of the ancient outpost and the cause of the EMP. Hartman listened intently, his tactical mind already formulating a plan. "We need to level the playing field," he declared. "Petra, can your people fight alongside us?" Petra nodded without hesitation. "We stand with you, Colonel." Hartman turned to a group of human and Iridian personnel. "All right, listen up. We're forming joint strike teams. I want a mix of human and Iridian capabilities in each unit. Use whatever weapons are still functional after the EMP." As Hartman organized the defense, Patrick pulled Petra aside. "We need to get back to that outpost. If we can figure out how to control its systems, we might be able to reactivate the colony's defenses." Petra agreed, her silver eyes gleaming with purpose. "Let's go. Our enhanced biology should help us interface with the ancient technology." They slipped away from the battle lines, racing back towards the hidden structure. As they ran, the sound of combat grew more intense behind them. The fate of the colony, and perhaps the future of human-Iridian relations, now rested on their ability to unlock the secrets of their shared past. Entering the ancient outpost once more, Patrick and Petra found the chamber alive with activity. Holographic displays flickered with data streams, and the central obelisk pulsed with an intense blue light. "We need to find the main control system," Petra said, her eyes scanning the alien interface. "There must be a way to redirect this energy to the colony's defense grid." As they worked to decipher the complex systems, Patrick's enhanced senses picked up a new disturbance. Outside the outpost, the hybrid plants developed by Dr. Rodriguez were growing at an alarming rate. their accelerated growth fueled by the energy surge from the ancient structure. "The plants," he muttered. "They're changing the entire ecosystem of the island. We need to stabilize them before they overwhelm everything." Petra's fingers flew over the alien controls, her mind processing the information at an incredible speed. "Patrick, look at this. The outpost contains advanced terraforming technology. If we can harness it, we might be able to control the plant growth and reshape the battlefield in our favor." As they delved deeper into the outpost systems, a startling revelation unfolded before them. The data archives revealed that the Iridians' past visits to Earth were part of a long-term strategy, a plan to prepare the planet for eventual colonization. Petra froze, her silver eyes wide with shock. "This can't be true. Our leaders always told us we came to Earth out of necessity, not as part of some ancient plan." Patrick placed a comforting hand on her shoulder, feeling the conflict raging within her. "We can deal with the implications later. Right now, we need to focus on saving the colony." Nodding, Petra pushed aside her turmoil and returned to the task at hand. As they worked, they uncovered a prototype of an advanced bioengineering device capable of altering the genetic structure of living organisms to adapt to different environments. "This technology," Patrick breathed, "it could be the solution to both our world's problems. But the ethical implications." Their discussion was cut short by a violent tremor that shook the outpost. Outside, the battle had intensified. They could hear the sound of energy weapons and explosions drawing closer. "We're out of time," Petra said urgently. "We need to act now." Patrick looked at the bioengineering device, then back at Petra. A silent understanding passed between them. Without a word, they stepped into the device's chamber, their hands clasped tightly together. As the machine hummed to life around them, Patrick and Petra felt their bodies begin to change at the molecular level. Their very DNA was being rewritten, blending human and Iridian genetics into something entirely new. The process was intense, bordering on excruciating. But through it all, they held on to each other, their shared commitment carrying them through the transformation. When the chamber finally opened, Patrick and Petra emerged as something more than human, more than Iridian. Their skin shimmered with an otherworldly iridescence, their eyes now a swirling mix of human colors and Iridian silver. They looked at each other in wonder, marveling at the physical manifestation of their two species' potential for unity. But there was no time to fully process their transformation. The sounds of battle were now just outside the outpost entrance. With their new hybrid biology, Patrick and Petra found they could interface with the ancient systems effortlessly. They quickly activated the outpost defenses, creating a force field that expanded to encompass the entire island. As they stepped out of the hidden structure, they were met with a scene of chaos. The hybrid plants had grown into a dense, almost sentient jungle, creating a surreal battlefield where both human and Iridian forces struggled to gain the upper hand. Their appearance brought the fighting to a sudden halt. Human and Iridian alike stared in awe at the transformed couple. Patrick and Petra stood before them, living proof of what their two species could become together. In the distance, they could see the approaching lights of President Yamamura's military fleet, adding yet another layer of tension to the already volatile situation. As all eyes turned to them, Patrick and Petra knew that their next words and actions would shape the future of human-Iridian relations for generations to come. The fate of two worlds now rested on their shoulders, their newly transformed bodies a testament to potential and the risks of their intertwined destinies. As they prepared to address the astonished crowd, the air crackled with possibility, the future of two species hanging in the balance. Balance. Patrick and Petra stepped forward, their transformed bodies radiating an otherworldly aura that commanded attention from both sides of the conflict. As they moved, the hybrid plants around them seemed to respond, curling away to clear a path. The iridescent sheen of their skin flickered in the dim light, shifting between human and iridian tones with each movement. Patrick raised his hand, and the fighting ceased immediately. The sudden silence was deafening, broken only by the distant hum of President Yamamura's approaching fleet. Humans and iridians, Patrick's voice rang out, amplified by the ancient outpost technology. We stand before you as living proof of what our species can achieve together. Petra continued, her voice harmonizing perfectly with Patrick's. The outpost has revealed to us the true history of our peoples. The Iridians have been guiding human development for millennia, preparing Earth for this moment of unity. As they spoke, holographic displays materialized around them, showing scenes from Earth's past, ancient structures, mysterious artifacts, and inexplicable leaps in human technology. The evidence was irrefutable. Colonel Hartman lowered his weapon, his eyes wide with astonishment. Across the battlefield, Admiral Zan did the same, his silver eyes reflecting a mix of awe and understanding. Patrick and Petra activated the outpost's advanced communication systems, broadcasting their message to all parties, including the approaching warships. We have the power to reshape our worlds, to solve the crises that plague both our species, Patrick explained. At that moment, Dr. Rodriguez emerged from the dense foliage, her team following close behind. In her hands, she held a sample of the hybrid plant species, its leaves glowing with bioluminescent energy. These plants, Dr. Rodriguez announced, her voice carrying across the suddenly attentive crowd, have the potential to reverse environmental damage at an unprecedented rate. When properly controlled, they could transform barren worlds into thriving ecosystems. The implications of her words sank in. Human and Iridian alike began to lower their weapons, their faces showing a dawning realization of the possibilities before them. Colonel Hartman stepped forward, his tactical mind already processing the new information. He turned to Admiral Zan, extending his hand. I propose we establish a joint security force. Together, we can ensure the safety of this island and its incredible discoveries. Admiral Zan hesitated for a moment before clasping Hartman's hand firmly. Agreed. This cooperation may be the key to our shared future. As the two leaders began coordinating their forces, a commotion erupted at the edge of the clearing. Ezra Kane and his group of extremists were attempting to flee, pushing through the dense undergrowth towards the coast. Patrick's enhanced senses picked up their movement instantly. Kane is escaping, he called out. They're heading for the water. Without hesitation, Patrick and Petra sprinted after the fleeing extremists, their hybrid bodies allowing them to move with incredible speed and agility. They weaved through the jungle, the plants seeming to part before them. As they reached the shoreline, they saw Kane and his followers boarding a hidden submersible vehicle. The craft began to sink beneath the waves, but Patrick and Petra didn't hesitate. They dove into the water, their hybrid physiology adapting instantly to the aquatic environment. Underwater, their vision was crystal clear. They spotted the submersible heading towards the ancient structure they had detected earlier. Suddenly, the water around them began to vibrate with energy. The structure was coming to life, awakened by the surge from the outpost. A powerful magnetic field emanated from the underwater edifice, enveloping Kane's vessel. The submersible shuddered to a halt, its occupants trapped inside. Patrick and Petra swam towards the immobilized craft, their bodies glowing with bioluminescence that lit up the dark waters. As they approached, they realized the true nature of the underwater structure, a massive terraforming engine, dormant for millennia but now stirring to life. With their hybrid abilities, they interfaced with the ancient technology, securing Kane's vessel and initiating the capture protocols. As they worked, they could sense the immense power of the terraforming engine, its potential to reshape entire worlds pulsing beneath their fingertips. Back on the surface, news of the events on the island was spreading rapidly. Satellite feeds and drone footage captured the transformed Patrick and Petra, the cooperation between humans and Iridians, and the incredible hybrid ecosystem taking root on the island. As the images reached the global population, a wave of change began to sweep across the world. In major cities, crowds gathered in support of human-iridian cooperation. The tide of public opinion was shifting, and world leaders found themselves under immense pressure to embrace this new alliance. President Yamamura's fleet arrived at the island, only to find a scene far different from the conflict they had expected. As Yamamura himself stepped onto the shore, he was greeted by the sight of humans and Iridians working side by side to establish a new order. Ambassador Bryan approached the president, a data pad in hand. "Sir," she said, her voice filled with barely suppressed excitement, "I've already begun drafting a framework for a formal treaty with the Iridians. We're on the brink of a new era of interspecies cooperation." Yamamura nodded, his expression a mix of resignation and cautious hope. "Very well, Ambassador. Let's see where this new path leads us." As the sun began to set on this transformative day, Patrick and Petra stood on a cliff overlooking the rapidly expanding colony. The island buzzed with activity as more volunteers arrived, eager to be part of this groundbreaking collaboration. Petra turned to Patrick, her hybrid eyes reflecting the fading light. "We've only just begun," she said softly. "There's so much more to discover, so much more to become." Patrick nodded, feeling a strange tingling sensation coursing through his body. He realized that their transformation was not complete. They were still evolving, still changing. What they would become, and what it would mean for the future of both species, remained to be seen. As they watched the bustling activity below, neither Patrick nor Petra noticed the furtive glances and whispered conversations taking place in the shadows. A small group of humans and Iridians, uneasy with the rapid changes, were already beginning to form the seeds of resistance. The purists, as they would come to call themselves, were preparing to challenge this new order, adding yet another layer of complexity to the unfolding drama of human-Iridian relations. As they stood together, facing the assembled crowd of humans and Iridians, Patrick and Petra felt a surge of hope for the future. In the days that followed, the island transformed into a bustling center of interspecies cooperation. The hybrid ecosystem flourished, reclaiming areas damaged by the conflict with astonishing speed. Dr. Rodriguez and her team worked tirelessly to study and harness the potential of the new plant species. As the colony grew, so did the interest in Patrick and Petra's unique hybrid status. Dr. Rodriguez, recognizing the unprecedented nature of their transformation, established a dedicated research facility on the island. The Convergence Institute, as it came to be known, quickly became the focal point for groundbreaking research into human Iridian biology. Patrick and Petra found themselves spending more and more time at the Institute, undergoing a battery of tests and examinations. During one such session, Dr. Rodriguez made a startling discovery. "Your DNA," she explained, her eyes wide with excitement as she showed them the results on a holographic display. "It's exhibiting an unprecedented level of stability and adaptability. It's as if your genetic structure is continuously optimizing itself." Patrick flexed his hand, watching as his skin shimmered with an iridescent glow. "We've noticed some changes. Increased strength, stamina. Our senses seem sharper too." Petra nodded in agreement. "It's like we're still evolving, becoming something more." Dr. Rodriguez's expression turned serious. "This development is exciting, but it also raises concerns. We don't know the full implications of such rapid evolution. We'll need to monitor you closely." As they left the Institute, Patrick and Petra were approached by Colonel Hartman. The soldier's demeanor had changed dramatically since the first days of the alliance, his initial skepticism replaced by a firm commitment to cooperation. "I'm starting a joint training program," Hartman explained, his voice filled with enthusiasm. "A peacekeeping unit combining the strengths of both our species. I'd like you two to participate as instructors. Your unique perspective could be invaluable." Patrick and Petra exchanged a glance, then nodded in agreement. "We'd be honored," Patrick replied. As they walked through the colony, they noticed a flurry of activity near the shoreline. Admiral Zan was overseeing a team of human and Iridian engineers as they pored over holographic blueprints. Curious, they approached the group. Admiral Zan greeted them with a nod. "Ah, perfect timing. We're facing a resource challenge with our growing population. My solution? An underwater habitation dome." The hologram shifted, displaying a massive underwater structure. "We're calling it the Atlantis Initiative," Zan continued. "It will combine the best of Iridian aquatic engineering with human ingenuity." As they discussed the project, a commotion erupted nearby. A group of colonists was gathered around a communication terminal, their faces etched with concern. Patrick and Petra rushed over, pushing through the crowd. The terminal screen was filled with static, occasional bursts of fragmented messages breaking through. "We're cut off," one of the technicians explained, his fingers flying over the controls. "Some kind of cyber attack. We can't reach Earth or any of our off-island outposts." Patrick felt a familiar tingling sensation course through his body. He placed his hand on the terminal, closing his eyes in concentration. Beside him, Petra did the same. Their hybrid physiology allowed them to interface with the technology in ways neither human nor Iridian could alone. They could sense the flow of data, feel the malicious code worming its way through the system. Working in perfect synchronization, they began to isolate and neutralize the attack. It was sophisticated, bearing the hallmarks of both human and Iridian hacking techniques. As they worked, fragments of information filtered through. They caught glimpses of protests on Earth, heard snatches of heated debates in the United Nations. The word purist kept recurring, accompanied by waves of fear and anger. Finally, with a surge of effort, they managed to purge the last of the malicious code. The communication system hummed back to life, screens flickering with incoming messages. Exhausted but triumphant, Patrick and Petra stepped back from the terminal. As the colony's leadership gathered to assess the situation, they found a quiet moment alone. "This is just the beginning, isn't it?" Petra said softly, her hand finding Patrick's. He nodded, his eyes scanning the bustling colony around them. "The purists, whoever they are, they're not going to give up easily. And there's still so much we don't understand about what we've become." Petra's grip tightened on his hand. "Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." As if in response to her words, they both felt a strange sensation. It was subtle at first, a slight shift in their already enhanced perception. But as they stood there, hand in hand, they could feel their bodies continuing to change, to adapt. The future was uncertain, filled with both promise and peril. But as Patrick and Petra looked out over the thriving human Iridian colony, they knew that they were at the forefront of a new era. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would meet them head-on, their unique hybrid nature bridging the gap between two worlds and paving the way for a future neither species could have imagined alone. As Patrick and Petra stood overlooking the bustling colony, their bodies tingled with the sensation of ongoing transformation. Little did they know that their unique hybrid DNA was about to become the center of a storm that would shake the very foundations of human-Iridian relations. Dr. Rodriguez burst out of the Convergence Institute, her eyes wild with excitement. "Patrick, Petra, I need you in the lab immediately," she called, waving a data pad frankly. "We've made a breakthrough." Inside the Institute, holographic displays flickered with complex genetic sequences. Dr. Rodriguez's fingers danced across the controls, highlighting specific sections of DNA. "Your hybrid genome," she explained, her voice quivering with nearly unleashed excitement. "It's not just stable. It's adaptable in ways we never imagined. We believe it could be the key to solving the Iridian population crisis." Patrick's brow furrowed. "How exactly?" The combination of human and Iridian DNA has created a genetic structure that's incredibly resilient, Dr. Rodriguez elaborated. If we can replicate this in the broader Iridian population, it could help them adapt to changing environments and reverse their declining birth rates. As word of the discovery spread, the colony transformed overnight. Iridian ships began arriving in droves, their sleek forms dotting the horizon. The newly constructed underwater habitation dome, part of Admiral Zan's Atlantis initiative, quickly filled to capacity. Admiral Zan, his tentacles twitching with concern, implemented strict immigration protocols. "We must balance our desire to help with our ability to sustain," he announced to the colony's leadership. "Each new arrival will be carefully screened and admitted based on our current capacity." For Patrick and Petra, the constant attention became overwhelming. Everywhere they went, eyes followed, some filled with hope, others with suspicion or fear. The weight of being seen as a salvation for an entire species pressed down on them. One evening, as they retreated to their quarters, Petra turned to Patrick, her hybrid eyes reflecting the bioluminescent glow of their skin. "We need to get away," she said softly. "Just for a little while." Patrick nodded, feeling the same need for respite. They planned a short expedition into the uncharted interior of the island, away from the pressures of the colony. As they ventured deeper into the lush jungle, the hybrid ecosystem became more pronounced. Plants shimmered with otherworldly colors, and strange creatures darted through the undergrowth. Their enhanced senses picked up a myriad of new scents and sounds. On the third day of their journey, they stumbled upon something unexpected. The dense foliage parted to reveal a hidden valley, teeming with life unlike anything they had seen before. Hybrid plants and animals, far more advanced than those near the colony, thrived in a complex ecosystem. "This is incredible," Petra breathed, her eyes wide as she took in the scene. "These hybrids, they're so much more developed than what we've seen before." Patrick knelt to examine a flower with petals that seemed to shift and adapt to his touch. This level of integration, it's as if this place has been evolving for centuries. As they explored further, movement caught their eye. Patrick froze, signaling Petra to stay quiet. From behind a cluster of luminescent ferns emerged a group of beings unlike any they had encountered before. These creatures walked upright, their bodies a seamless blend of human and Iridian features. They moved with grace through the valley, seemingly at one with their surroundings. "Are they like us?" Petra whispered, her voice a mix of awe and apprehension. Before Patrick could respond, one of the beings turned, locking eyes with them. There was intelligence in that gaze, a spark of recognition. The being raised a hand, not quite human, not quite Iridian, in what seemed to be a gesture of greeting. Patrick and Petra exchanged a look, realizing that they had stumbled upon something that could change everything. This hidden valley, with its advanced hybrid ecosystem and these mysterious inhabitants, held secrets that could reshape the future of both their species. As they cautiously approached the group of hybrid beings, questions raced through their minds. Who were these creatures? How long had they been here? And what did their existence mean for the future of human-Iridian relations? The leader of the hybrid group stepped forward, its features a harmonious blend of both species. It opened its mouth to speak, and Patrick and Petra leaned in, eager to hear what revelations awaited them in this hidden corner of the island. Patrick and Petra tensed, unsure how to respond to this unexpected encounter. The hybrid being's voice, when it spoke, was a melodious blend of human and Iridian tones. "Welcome, kindred spirits," it said, extending both arms in a gesture of peace. "We have awaited your arrival for generations." Patrick and Petra exchanged astonished glances. Before they could respond, a distant rumble shook the ground beneath their feet. The leader of the hybrid group frowned, its expression darkening. "We must return," Patrick said urgently to Petra. "Something's wrong at the colony." As they rushed back through the dense jungle, The hybrid leader called after them. "Return to us. The answers you seek lie within the valley." Emerging from the tree-line, Patrick and Petra were met with a scene of chaos. A large crowd had gathered outside the Convergence Institute, their angry shouts echoing across the colony. At the forefront stood two figures, Victor Kane and Zara, their faces contorted with rage as they led the chants of the protesters. No more hybrids. No more experiments. The crowd's fury was palpable, a wave of hostility crashing against the Institute's walls. Colonel Hartman's security force formed a protective barrier around the facility, their weapons raised but not yet fired. The tension in the air was electric, threatening to spark into violence at any moment. As Patrick and Petra approached, they saw a group of masked figures break away from the main protest. With practiced efficiency, they slipped past the distracted guards and forced their way into the Institute. "We have to stop them," Petra shouted, her hybrid physiology allowing her to move within human speed. Patrick was right behind her as they raced towards a building. Inside, alarms blared as the infiltrators smashed equipment and overturned workstations. Dr. Rodriguez stood in the center of her lab, her face a mask of horror as she watched years of research destroyed before her eyes. Patrick and Petra burst into the room, their bodies glowing with an intense bioluminescence. The saboteurs turned, startled by their sudden appearance. "Stop this madness," Patrick's voice boomed, amplified by his hybrid vocal cords. The sound reverberated through the room, causing the intruders to stumble. Petra focused her enhanced senses, detecting the subtle movements of the saboteurs. With lightning-fast reflexes, she disarmed two of them before they could react. The fight was brief but intense. Patrick and Petra's hybrid strength and agility gave them a clear advantage, and soon the infiltrators were subdued. But the damage was done. Smoke rose from destroyed computers, and shattered vials leaked their contents onto the floor. Dr. Rodriguez sank to her knees, tears streaming down her face. "It's gone," she whispered. "All our work, all our progress. Destroyed." Outside, the protest began to disperse as colony security forces arrived in force. Victor Kane and Zara were taken into custody, but their satisfied smirks showed they believed they had achieved their goal. In the aftermath of the attack, Patrick and Petra joined the colony's leadership in an emergency meeting. Admiral Zan's tentacles writhed with agitation as he delivered grave news. "We received a communication from our home world," he said, his voice heavy with concern. "The environmental crisis has accelerated. Without intervention, our planet will be uninhabitable within a decade." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Dr. Rodriguez, her eyes red from crying, spoke up. "With the sabotage of our research, we're back to square one. It could take years to recreate what we've lost." Patrick and Petra shared a look, a silent communication passing between them. "Maybe not," Patrick said, drawing all eyes in the room. "We've discovered something that could change everything." They recounted their experience in the Hidden Valley, describing the advanced hybrid ecosystem and the mysterious beings they encountered. As they spoke, Dr. Rodriguez's expression shifted from despair to cautious hope. "If what you're saying is true," she said, leaning forward, "the valley could hold the key to accelerating our research. We might be able to bypass years of work." Colonel Hartman, who had been silently listening, spoke up. "It's not just about the research anymore. The purists have shown they're willing to resort to violence. Any expedition into this valley will need protection." Admiral Zen nodded in agreement. "We must act quickly but cautiously. Patrick, Petra, we need you to lead a team into the valley. Study everything you can and bring back whatever samples or data you can gather." As the meeting adjourned, Patrick and Petra found themselves at the center of a flurry of activity. A diverse team of human and Iridian scientists was quickly assembled, with Dr. Rodriguez at the helm. Colonel Hartman himself volunteered to lead the security detail. As they prepared for the expedition, loading equipment and supplies onto all-terrain vehicles, Patrick pulled Petra aside. "Are you ready for this?" he asked, his hybrid eyes searching hers. "We don't know what we'll find in that valley, or what it might mean for us. For everyone." Petra squeezed his hand, her skin shimmering with nervous energy. "Ready or not, we have to do this. The future of both our species depends on it." With a final check of their gear, the expedition team set out, leaving the turbulent colony behind. As they entered the dense jungle, Patrick and Petra led the way, their enhanced senses alert for any sign of danger. The deeper they ventured into the uncharted territory, the stranger their surroundings became. Plants with leaves that change color as they pass, creatures that seemed to phase in and out of visibility, and flowers that emitted complex harmonies instead of scents. Dr. Rodriguez was in a constant state of amazement, her data pad working overtime to record every new discovery. "The level of integration between human and Iridian biology is astounding," she marveled. "It's as if this ecosystem has been evolving for thousands of years." As they approached the center of the valley, Patrick and Petra felt a familiar tingling sensation. The air seemed to thicken, charged with an energy they couldn't explain. Suddenly, the dense foliage parted, revealing a sight that left the entire team speechless. Before them stood a massive structure, its architecture a perfect blend of human and Iridian design. Sleek lines and organic curves melded seamlessly, creating a building that seemed to grow out of the landscape itself. It's an outpost," Admiral Zem breathed, his tentacles twitching with excitement. "But far more advanced than anything we've ever built." As they approached the structure, Patrick felt a pull, an inexplicable urge to touch its surface. He reached out, his fingers barely grazing the wall, when suddenly the entire building hummed to life. Lines of light raced across its surface, converging on a central point where a doorway materialized. The team exchanged nervous glances. Whatever lay beyond that door would change everything. With a deep breath, Patrick and Petra stepped forward, ready to face the unknown and uncover the secrets that could save both their worlds. Worlds, ready to face the challenges that lay ahead. As they stepped through the shimmering doorway, a flood of information overwhelmed their senses. Ancient knowledge coursed through their minds, unlocking hidden potentials within their hybrid physiology. Patrick felt his skin tingle with newfound energy, while Petra's vision sharpened to unprecedented levels. Their exploration of the outpost was cut short by an urgent transmission from Colonel Hartman. "Patrick, Petra, we need you back at the colony immediately. The situation has escalated." Without hesitation, they gathered their team and began the journey back. As they emerged from the dense jungle, the distant sound of explosions and shouting reached their enhanced hearing. Smoke rose from several locations across the island, painting a grim picture of the chaos that had erupted in their absence. "The purists," Petra growled, her eyes narrowing as she surveyed the destruction. Patrick nodded grimly. "We need to get to the Convergence Institute. It's likely their primary target." As they approached the outskirts of the colony, they encountered the first signs of the uprising. A group of purist extremists had set up a makeshift barricade, blocking the main road to the Institute. Patrick and Petra exchanged a quick glance, silently agreeing on a course of action. Patrick stepped forward, his skin suddenly hardening into an armor-like shell. The purists opened fire, but their bullets ricocheted harmlessly off his transformed epidermis. Petra, meanwhile, moved with impossible speed, weaving between the attackers and disarming them with precise strikes. The extremists, caught off guard by this display of hybrid abilities, faltered. Some threw down their weapons, while others fled into the surrounding buildings. One young purist, his eyes wide with a mix of fear and awe, stammered, What are you?" Patrick's voice was firm but not unkind as he replied, "We are the future. The true convergence of human and Iridian. With the path cleared, they pressed on toward the Convergence Institute. The scene that greeted them was one of nearly unleashed chaos. Colonel Hartman's security forces formed a protective ring around the facility, exchanging fire with purist attackers who seemed determined to breach the defenses. Patrick and Petra charged into the fray, their newly awakened abilities turning the tide of the battle. Patrick's hardened skin deflected a barrage of projectiles, allowing him to push forward and create openings for the security forces. Petra's enhanced agility made her virtually untouchable as she darted between attackers, disarming them with swift, precise movements. As they fought their way to the Institute's entrance, they could see the shock and disbelief on the faces of both defenders and attackers. Their display of power was causing some of the purists to hesitate, clearly questioning their stance against human Iridian integration. Inside the Institute, they found Dr. Rodriguez and her team working frantically amidst the wreckage of sabotaged equipment. The scientist's face lit up with hope as Patrick and Petra entered. "Thank goodness you're here," she exclaimed, her voice strained. "We're trying to salvage what we can, but so much has been destroyed." Patrick stepped forward, his eyes gleaming with the knowledge gained from the ancient outpost. "Doctor, we've made a discovery that could change everything. The Hidden Valley. It holds secrets that could accelerate our research by years, maybe decades." As they shared their findings, Dr. Rodriguez's expression transformed from despair to cautious optimism. She immediately began correlating the new information with their existing research, her mind racing with the possibilities. Colonel Hartman, who had accompanied them inside, was already coordinating with Admiral Zan via a secure communication link. "We need to mount a counteroffensive," he declared, his voice firm. "The purists have gained too much ground." As plans were being formulated, Patrick and Petra found themselves faced with a crucial decision. Dr. Rodriguez approached them, her face etched with both excitement and concern. "Your hybrid DNA," she began. "It's the key to understanding these new developments. If you're willing, we could perform an extraction procedure. It's risky, and we don't fully understand how it might affect your evolving physiology, but it could provide the breakthrough we need to solve the Iridian population crisis." Patrick and Petra exchanged a long look, silently weighing the potential consequences against the greater good. Finally, Petra spoke, her voice resolute. "We'll do it. Whatever it takes to end this conflict and secure a future for both our species." As they prepared for the procedure, alarms blared throughout the Institute. Colonel Hartman's voice crackled over the intercom. "Purist forces are mounting another assault. All personnel, prepare for imminent breach." Patrick and Petra, strapped to medical beds, shared one last determined look as Dr. Rodriguez began the extraction process. Outside, the sounds of battle intensified, the fate of the colony hanging in the balance as the hybrid couple underwent a transformation that could change the course of human-Iridian relations forever. As the extraction procedure began, Patrick and Petra's enhanced senses heightened their awareness of the chaos unfolding outside. The distant sounds of gunfire and explosions grew louder, and the acrid smell of smoke filled the air. Dr. Rodriguez worked swiftly, her hands steady despite the mounting pressure. Suddenly, a deafening explosion rocked the building. Alarms blared as Colonel Hartman's voice crackled over the intercom. "Purist forces have breached the outer defenses. They're deploying an electromagnetic pulse device." Patrick and Petra exchanged a look of alarm. They knew an EMP could destroy the vital equipment needed for their procedure and potentially erase years of research. In that split second, they made a decision that would alter the course of the conflict. "Stop the extraction," Patrick commanded, his voice filled with urgency. "We need to act now." Dr. Rodriguez hesitated, her brow furrowed with concern. "But the procedure—" "There won't be anything left to study if that EMP goes off," Petra interjected, already unstrapping herself from the medical bed. As they rushed to the window, they could see the purist forces advancing, a large device at the center of their formation. Patrick's skin began to tingle, his newly awakened abilities responding to the imminent threat. Beside him, Petra's eyes gleamed with an otherworldly light as she sensed the electromagnetic fields building around them. "I can absorb the energy," Patrick said, his voice filled with commitment. "But I'll need your help to control it." Petra nodded, understanding instantly. "I can guide the flow. Together, we can create a barrier." They moved in perfect synchronization, their hybrid physiology allowing them to communicate on a level beyond words. Patrick's skin began to glow with a soft, green light as he tapped into his photosynthetic power. Petra's hands danced in the air, manipulating invisible currents of energy. Outside, the purists activated their device. A wave of electromagnetic energy surged towards the Institute, threatening to disable every piece of electronic equipment within its range. But as the pulse reached the building, it encountered an unexpected resistance. A shimmering dome of energy formed around the Convergence Institute, Patrick and Petra at its epicenter. The electromagnetic pulse crashed against the barrier, its destructive force dissipating harmlessly. The purists watched in disbelief as their ultimate weapon failed to penetrate the protective shield. Inside, Patrick and Petra strained under the effort of maintaining the barrier. Sweat beaded on their foreheads, and their bodies trembled with exertion. But they held firm, their shared perseverance fueling their newfound abilities. Colonel Hartman, witnessing the extraordinary display of hybrid power, seized the opportunity. "All units, counteroffensive now." He barked into his communicator. "The purists are vulnerable." The joint Human-Iridian security team, emboldened by Patrick and Petra's feat, surged forward. They pushed back against the purist forces with renewed vigor, their coordinated efforts quickly overwhelming the shocked attackers. As the battle raged on, the distinctive sound of aircraft engines filled the air. The International Peacekeeping Force, authorized by the United Nations Security Council, had arrived. Dropships descended from the sky, disgorging heavily armed peacekeepers who quickly joined the fray. Victor, Kane, and Zara, realizing their plan had failed spectacularly, called for a retreat. "Fall back to the mountains," Kane shouted, his face contorted with fury and disbelief. The remaining purist forces scrambled to escape, abandoning their positions and fleeing towards the island's rugged interior. With the immediate threat neutralized, Patrick and Petra finally lowered the energy barrier. They stumbled, exhausted from the intense effort, but their faces shone with triumph. Dr. Rodriguez rushed to their side, her eyes wide with amazement. "That was incredible," she breathed, helping them to nearby chairs. "Your abilities have evolved far beyond our initial projections." As they caught their breath, Colonel Hartman entered the room, his uniform singed but his expression one of satisfaction. "We've pushed them back," he reported. "The peacekeepers are securing the perimeter as we speak." Admiral Zan's holographic form flickered into existence, his tentacles waving with excitement. "Remarkable work, all of you," he said. "But we must act quickly. The data from Patrick and Petra's hybrid DNA could be the key to solving our population crisis." Dr. Rodriguez nodded, already moving towards her workstation. "With the immediate threat contained, we can resume our work on the universal vaccine. If we combine this new data with the ancient Iridian genetic engineering technology." As the scientists threw themselves into their work with renewed vigor, Patrick and Petra shared a quiet moment. They watched the frantic activity around them, acutely aware that their actions had not only saved the Institute, but potentially altered the future of human-Iridian relations. "What do you think happens now?" Petra asked, her voice low. Patrick squeezed her hand, his hybrid eyes scanning the horizon visible through the window. "I'm not sure," he admitted, "but whatever comes next, we'll face it together." Outside, the first rays of dawn broke over the island, illuminating a landscape forever changed by the events of the night. As the Convergence Institute hummed with activity, the air crackled with the promise of new discoveries and the hope for a shared future between two worlds. Species. As the sun continued to rise, casting a warm glow over the island, Patrick and Petra found themselves at the center of a whirlwind of activity. The following weeks saw a flurry of scientific breakthroughs and diplomatic negotiations. Patrick and Petra's heroic actions during the Purist attack had catapulted them into the spotlight as living symbols of human Iridian integration. Their every move was scrutinized by the media, and they found themselves inundated with requests for interviews and public appearances. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a renowned xenoanthropologist specializing in interspecies relationships, approached the couple with a proposal. Your unique bond could provide invaluable insights into human Iridian interactions, she explained, her eyes bright with enthusiasm. Would you be willing to participate in a comprehensive study? Patrick and Petra exchanged glances, silently communicating their reservations. The idea of having their relationship put under a microscope was daunting, but they also recognized the potential benefits. We understand the importance of your research, Dr. Tanaka, Patrick said carefully, but we need to maintain some level of privacy. Petra nodded in agreement. Our relationship isn't just a scientific curiosity. It's personal. Dr. Tanaka smiled reassuringly. Of course, we'll establish clear boundaries and ensure your comfort throughout the process. Your participation could pave the way for future human Iridian couples. After further discussion, they agreed to take part in the study. As Dr. Tanaka began her observations, she quickly noticed something extraordinary. Both Patrick and Petra were exhibiting unexpected physiological changes. It's remarkable, Dr. Tanaka murmured, reviewing her data. Your prolonged intimate contact seems to be triggering further genetic adaptations. You're becoming more compatible on a cellular level. This discovery sent ripples through the scientific community. Debates raged about the implications of accelerated evolution through human Iridian relationships. Some saw it as a promising path forward, while others expressed concern about unforeseen consequences. Meanwhile, the Convergence Institute pressed on with its work on the universal vaccine. Dr. Rodriguez and her team worked tirelessly, building on the breakthroughs made possible by Patrick and Petra's hybrid DNA. Their efforts paid off when they successfully adapted the vaccine for human use. This is it, Dr. Rodriguez announced, her voice filled with emotion. With this vaccine, humans will be able to survive comfortably in the Iridian atmosphere. We've opened the door to a new era of exploration and cooperation. The news electrified both human and Iridian communities. Admiral Zan, who had fully adapted to Earth's environment, saw an opportunity to take the next big step in interspecies relations. We must seize this moment, he declared, his tentacles swaying with excitement. I propose a joint mission to my home world. We can implement the vaccine on a larger scale and begin efforts to restore our failing ecosystem. The Admiral turned to Patrick and Petra. Given your unique abilities and your status as diplomats of both our species, I believe you are the ideal candidates to lead this expedition. As preparations for the mission began, a sense of hope and anticipation filled the air. However, this optimism was shattered when an urgent alert came through the colony's communication systems. Victor Kane's face appeared on screens across the settlement, his expression a mix of defiance and desperation. We will not stand idly by while our species is corrupted, he snarled. We have acquired an Iridian spacecraft and are en route to their home world. We will stop this misguided vaccination effort by any means necessary. The colony erupted into action. Colonel Hartman quickly assembled a team of elite human and Iridian pilots for pursuit. We can't let them reach the Iridian planet, he growled. The damage they could do is unthinkable. Patrick and Petra volunteered immediately, their hybrid abilities making them invaluable assets. As they boarded their pursuit craft, Patrick felt a familiar tingling sensation across his skin. His ability to sense energy patterns had grown stronger, and he could almost see the trail left by the stolen Iridian ship. "I can track them," he said confidently. "We'll catch them before they can do any harm." Petra took the controls, her enhanced reflexes allowing her to pilot the ship with unprecedented precision. As they lifted off, leaving Earth's atmosphere behind, she felt a surge of exhilaration. "We've come so far," she murmured, glancing at Patrick. "And now we're headed to the stars." The pursuit team broke through Earth's orbit, their ship sleek and swift against the backdrop of space. Patrick's guidance led them on an intercept course with the stolen Iridian craft. As they closed in, they could see the ship's engines glowing an ominous red. "They're pushing the engines beyond safe limits," Petra warned, her hands dancing over the controls. "If they keep this up—" Her words were cut off by a blinding flash of light. The Purist ship had suffered a catastrophic engine failure, creating a massive energy surge. A spatial anomaly formed in the wake of the explosion, its swirling vortex pulling at nearby space. Patrick and Petra's ship, caught on the edge of the anomaly, began to shudder violently. Alarms blared as systems failed one by one. The last thing they saw before losing consciousness was a kaleidoscope of stars spinning wildly around them. When they awoke, they found themselves adrift in unknown space, their communication systems damaged beyond repair. As they worked to assess their situation, they made a startling discovery. The spatial anomaly had triggered yet another change in their hybrid physiology. Patrick looked at Petra, his eyes wide with wonder. "Can you hear me?" he asked, without opening his mouth. Petra gasped. "I can. But how?" "Your lips didn't move." They quickly realized they had developed a form of limited telepathic connection. Thoughts and emotions flowed between them effortlessly, bringing them closer than ever before. Yet this newfound intimacy also raised unsettling questions about the extent of their transformation. As they gazed out at the unfamiliar stars surrounding them, Patrick and Petra knew their journey was a long way to go. They had each other, their evolving abilities, and a universe of unknowns stretching out before them. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, their bond stronger than ever. With their ship's power reserves dwindling, they set a course for the nearest habitable planet, guided by their hybrid senses. As they approached the mysterious world, they couldn't help but wonder what new discoveries awaited them on its surface, and how their shared adventure would continue to shape their relationship and their very beings. As they approached the mysterious world, their anticipation grew with each passing moment. The ship's systems groaned as they entered the planet's atmosphere, the strain of their journey evident in every shuddering bulkhead. Patrick's heightened senses picked up on the subtle changes in air pressure and composition as they descended through layers of swirling clouds. "I'm picking up traces of oxygen," Petra announced, her fingers dancing across the control panel. "The atmosphere seems breathable, but there's something different about it." As they broke through the cloud cover, a landscape of vibrant purple vegetation and crystalline structures stretched out before them. The ship touched down in a clearing, kicking up a swirl of iridescent dust. Patrick and Petra stepped out onto the alien soil, their hybrid physiology already adapting to the new environment. The air felt thick and sweet, filling their lungs with each breath. Patrick closed his eyes, concentrating on the unfamiliar sensations flooding his body. "Petra," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "can you feel that? The energy in this place. It's unlike anything we've encountered before." Petra nodded, her eyes wide as she took in their surroundings. "It's like the whole planet is alive, humming with power." They set out to explore, their enhanced abilities guiding them through the alien terrain. As they walked, Patrick noticed the vegetation responding to his presence. Tendrils of purple foliage reached out towards him, swaying in a non-existent breeze. Concentrating, Patrick extended his hand towards a cluster of crystalline flowers. To his amazement, The plants began to grow and shift, forming a natural shelter around them. Incredible! Petra breathed, watching as Patrick manipulated the alien flora. Your abilities are evolving even further. As they continued their exploration, a structure in the distance caught their attention. It stood out against the organic landscape, its angular form a stark contrast to the flowing lines of the native vegetation. Is that artificial? Patrick asked, squinting at the horizon. Petra's electromagnetic sensitivity tingled. Definitely. And there's something familiar about its energy signature. They approached the structure cautiously, their hybrid senses on high alert. As they drew closer, the details of the building became clearer. Its architecture was a bizarre fusion of human and Iridian design elements, yet it appeared far more ancient than any known examples of either civilization. This doesn't make any sense, Patrick muttered, running his hand along the weathered surface of the building. How can this exist here? Petra's fingers twitched as she sensed the dormant technology within the structure. There's still power in there, just waiting to be awakened. They found an entrance, partially obscured by overgrown vegetation. As they stepped inside, lights flickered to life, responding to their presence. The interior was a maze of corridors and chambers, filled with dust-covered consoles and strange, organic-looking machinery. In the central chamber, they discovered a pedestal holding several data crystals. Patrick carefully lifted one, turning it over in his hands. These looked like they could contain information about this place. Petra approached a nearby console, her heightened electromagnetic sensitivity allowing her to interface directly with the alien technology. As she touched the control panel, a surge of energy flowed through her. The ancient systems began to hum to life, holographic displays flickering into existence around them. Patrick, Petra gasped, her eyes wide as she processed the information flooding her mind. This outpost, it's not just old. It predates known contact between humans and Iridians. And there's more. The data suggests a common ancestor, a civilization that may have given rise to both our species. As Petra worked to reactivate more of the outpost systems, Patrick focused on creating a sustainable living space for them. He used his newfound ability to manipulate the local plant life, growing walls and furniture from the alien vegetation. Their telepathic connection deepened as they worked, thoughts and emotions flowing freely between them. They found themselves sharing not just ideas, but sensory experiences. Patrick could feel the thrill of Petra's technological discoveries, while she experienced the satisfaction of his botanical creations. As night fell on the alien world, Patrick and Petra retired to the living space he had grown. The intimacy of their mental connection, combined with the strange energies of the planet, led to an intense physical encounter. Their hybrid bodies responded to each other in ways they had never experienced before, their very selves seeming to resonate in harmony. In the aftermath, as they lay entwined in a bed of soft, bioluminescent foliage, Patrick and Petra felt their individual identities blur. Their thoughts, emotions, and sensations merged until it was difficult to tell where one ended and the other began. "What's happening to us?" Patrick whispered, both awed and slightly unnerved by the intensity of their connection. Petra's response came not in words, but in a wave of emotion and understanding that washed over him. They were evolving, becoming something more than just human or Iridian. Their transformation was tied to this planet, to the ancient technology that surrounded them. As they drifted off to sleep, wrapped in each other's arms and minds, neither of them noticed a faint tremor that ran through the ground beneath them. Deep below the surface, something vast and ancient had begun to stir, awakened by their presence. The next morning, as Patrick and Petra continued their exploration of the outpost, they stumbled upon a hidden chamber. Inside, they found a holographic map of the planet, revealing a network of structures hidden beneath the surface. This isn't just an outpost, Petra realized, her fingers tracing the lines of energy that crisscrossed the planet's interior. The entire world is some kind of machine. Before they could investigate further, the ground began to shake violently. Outside, massive structures erupted from beneath the soil, reaching towards the sky. The planet itself was transforming around them, revealing its true nature as an immense, world-spanning mechanism. As Patrick and Petra watched in awe, a pulse of energy radiated out from the planet, powerful enough to be detected across vast distances of space. They knew, without fully understanding how, that this pulse would change everything. Their adventure on this mysterious siege ship was a long way to go, and the consequences of their discovery would ripple across the galaxy. Their adventure on this mysterious siege ship was a long way to go, and the consequences of their discovery would ripple across the cosmos. As the planet continued its transformation, Patrick and Petra felt a surge of energy coursing through their bodies. Their skin began to glow with intricate, swirling patterns that pulsed in sync with the world around them. The connection they shared with each other and the planet intensified, flooding their minds with a torrent of information. Patrick, Petra gasped, her eyes wide with wonder. I can feel the entire planet. It's like we're part of its nervous system. Before Patrick could respond, a series of alerts blared from the outpost's reactivated systems. Petra's fingers danced across the holographic interface, deciphering the incoming data. We've got company, she announced, her voice tense. Multiple ships entering orbit. Patrick joined her at the console, watching as the display filled with the signatures of an unknown fleet. Are they hostile? As if in response to his question, a message crackled through the outpost communication systems. The language was unfamiliar, but somehow Patrick and Petra found they could understand it. Greetings, inhabitants of the siege ship. A calm, melodious voice echoed through the chamber. We are the Jur, seekers of ancient knowledge. We come in peace and wish to establish contact. Patrick and Petra exchanged a look of relief tinged with apprehension. Their silent communication conveyed volumes. Curiosity about these new arrivals, concern for their own safety, and the weight of responsibility they felt for the incredible technology they had awakened. As they prepared to respond to the Jur, another alert sounded. A second group of ships had entered the system, the rescue mission from Earth. This is Captain Alara of the Earth vessel Horizon. A familiar voice crackled through the speakers. Patrick, Petra, do you copy? We've detected an unknown fleet in orbit. What's your status? The situation was rapidly becoming more complex. Patrick took a deep breath, centering himself before responding. Captain Alara, this is Patrick. We're safe, but things have changed. The planet we're on, it's not just a planet. It's a siege ship, some kind of ancient technology. And we've made contact with an alien species called the Jur. There was a moment of stunned silence before Captain Alara replied. Understood. We're approaching cautiously. Stand by for further instructions. As the Earth ship maneuvered into orbit, Patrick and Petra worked to establish a more stable connection with the Jur fleet. A face appeared on the holographic display, an alien being with iridescent scales and large, multifaceted eyes. I am Zalkirin, senior scientist of the Jur expedition. The alien introduced itself. We have long searched for active siege ships such as this. Your presence here and your apparent connection to the ship systems is most intriguing. Before they could delve deeper into conversation, a bright light illuminated the clearing outside the outpost. A sleek, otherworldly craft descended from the sky, touching down with barely a sound. The Jur had sent a delegation to the surface. Patrick and Petra stepped out to meet them, their bodies still glowing with bioluminescent patterns. As the Jur emerged from their craft, the aliens' eyes widened in fascination. Extraordinary, Zalkirin murmured, approaching the couple. Your biology. It's unlike anything we've encountered. You appear to have integrated with the siege ship systems on a cellular level. As the Jura delegation examined Patrick and Petra with an array of advanced scanning devices, a shuttle from the Earth Rescue Mission landed nearby. Colonel Hartman emerged, flanked by a team of armed personnel and Dr. Rodriguez. The colonel's eyes narrowed as he took in the scene: the transformed planet, the glowing hybrid couple, and the alien delegation. What in blazes is going on here? Dr. Rodriguez pushed past him, her medical scanner already whirring as she approached Patrick and Petra. Your physiology. It's undergone significant changes. Are you experiencing any discomfort or unusual symptoms? Before they could answer, Zalkirin stepped forward, addressing the Earth team. Your companions have become something truly remarkable, a bridge between organic life and the seed ship's technology. We believe they may hold the key to unlocking its full potential. Colonel Hartman's hand instinctively moved to his sidearm. And what exactly is this seed ship's potential? Patrick raised his hands in a calming gesture. Colonel, it's all right. The seed ship. It's designed to preserve life. But there's more. He turned to Petra, who nodded in confirmation. We've discovered something in the ship's database. It contains genetic templates for countless species, including what might be the precursors to both humans and Iridians. Dr. Rodriguez's eyes widened. Are you saying this ship is responsible for seeding life throughout the galaxy? It appears so, Petra confirmed. And there's something else. The ship's creators left a message. They built this as a fail-safe against some kind of cosmic catastrophe. By activating it, we may have triggered a warning system. The gravity of the situation settled over the group. Zalkirin stepped forward, his multifaceted eyes gleaming with intensity. This is precisely why we search for active seed ships. The knowledge and capabilities they possess could be crucial for the preservation of all life in the galaxy. Colonel Hartman frowned, clearly struggling with the implications. And how do we know we can trust you with this power? Before Zalkirin could respond, Patrick and Petra suddenly stiffened, their bioluminescent patterns flaring brightly. Their eyes glazed over, as if seeing something far beyond their immediate surroundings. It's starting, Patrick whispered, his voice distant and filled with awe. What's starting? Dr. Rodriguez demanded, her scanner beeping frantically as it registered the changes in their vital signs. Petra's gaze snapped back into focus, her expression a mixture of wonder and fear. The cosmic catastrophe the creators warned about. We can see it through the ship's long-range sensors. Something is coming, something that threatens all life in the galaxy. As if to underscore her words, the ground beneath them trembled. The seed ship was awakening fully, preparing to fulfill its ancient purpose. The assembled group, human, Iridian hybrid, and Jura-like, looked to each other, knowing that the decisions they made in the coming moments would shape the fate of countless worlds. Patrick and Petra stood at the center of it all, their entwined hands glowing with the power of the seed ship. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, as the guardians of a legacy older than humanity itself. As the assembled group grappled with the implications of the cosmic threat, Patrick and Petra's bodies began to pulse with an intense, otherworldly light. Their connection to the seed ship deepened, and they could feel its ancient systems stirring to life. It's time, Patrick said, his voice resonating with a new timbre. We need to activate the ship's core systems. Petra nodded, her eyes glowing with the same ethereal energy. Together, they moved towards the central control hub, their movements fluid and synchronized. As they approached the sleek alien console, their hands intertwined, and they placed them on the smooth surface. The effect was instantaneous. A surge of energy coursed through their bodies, and the entire planet seemed to tremble in response. The bioluminescent patterns on their skin flared brightly, pulsing in rhythm with the ship's awakening systems. Dr. Rodriguez's medical scanner whirred frantically. Their vital signs are off the charts, she exclaimed, her eyes wide with concern. Before anyone could intervene, a massive wave of energy erupted from the ship's core, enveloping Patrick and Petra in a cocoon of swirling light. Their bodies began to change, their skin taking on a metallic sheen that reflected the ship's internal lights like living mirrors. Zalkirin's multifaceted eyes widened in fascination. Extraordinary! They're integrating with the ship's systems on a cellular level. Colonel Hartman stepped forward, his hand instinctively moving to his weapon. Is this safe? We need to shut it down. No! Dr. Rodriguez interjected, her scanner still active. Interrupting the process could be fatal. We need to stabilize them. As the scientists rushed to find a solution, the seed ship's true nature revealed itself. Massive structures erupted from the ground, reshaping the planet's surface. Terraforming engines and biological synthesis chambers rose into the sky, their purpose now clear. Captain Alera's voice crackled through the communication systems. Colonel, we've got incoming. A fleet of unknown vessels just entered the system. Colonel Hartman's expression hardened. Hostile. Unknown, but they're on an intercept course, Alera responded. Wait. We're receiving a transmission. They're calling themselves the Voryx. Zalkirin hissed, his scales dripping. Voryx? They're resource scavengers, known for stripping planets bare. They must have detected the seed ship's energy signature. As the situation grew more complex, Patrick and Petra's consciousness expanded throughout the seed ship systems. They could sense every drone, every energy shield, every defensive capability at their disposal. Patrick's voice echoed through the control room, though his lips didn't move. We can see them. The Voryx fleet. They're preparing to attack. Petra's voice joined his, creating an eerie harmony. We can defend ourselves. The ship has weapons, shields. Colonel Hartman barked orders to his team, setting up a defensive perimeter around the control hub. Meanwhile, Dr. Rodriguez and Zalkirin worked feverishly to develop a solution to stabilize Patrick and Petra's rapidly changing physiology. The sky lit up as the Voryx launched their first wave of attack ships. Patrick and Petra, their minds melded with the seed ship systems, responded with uncanny precision. Swarms of drones intercepted the incoming vessels, while energy shields deflected weapons fire in a dazzling display of light and power. As the battle raged above, Dr. Rodriguez made a breakthrough. I've developed a nanite solution, she announced, holding up a vial of shimmering liquid. It should help regulate their connection to the ship without severing it completely. Zalkirin examined the solution with his advanced scanners. Impressive work, Doctor, but administering it will be challenging. They're physically integrated with the control systems now. The conflict in orbit intensified, but a new threat loomed on the horizon. The seed ship's long-range sensors, now fully operational, detected a wave of destructive energy moving through the galaxy. This phenomenon, which Patrick and Petra instinctively named the unraveling, threatened to break down the very fabric of space-time. As the gravity of the situation became clear, the priorities of all involved began to shift. Even the attacking Voryx, sensing the greater danger, hesitated in their assault. Zalkirin's eyes gleamed with sudden inspiration. We might be able to create a network of protected areas, life bubbles, where the unraveling cannot penetrate. But it would require Patrick and Petra to remain connected to the ship indefinitely. Colonel Hartman bristled at the suggestion. Out of the question. We're not sacrificing them for some alien scheme. As arguments erupted among the assembled group, Patrick and Petra made a decision of their own. Using their newfound connection to the ship, they initiated a process that none of them had thought possible. A bright flash filled the control room, momentarily blinding everyone present. When the light faded, there were two sets of Patrick and Petra, one pair still integrated with the ship's systems, glowing with otherworldly energy, and another pair in their original human iridian hybrid form, collapsing to the floor in exhaustion. Dr. Rodriguez rushed to the fallen pair, administering the nanite solution as Zalkirin watched in amazement. "They've replicated themselves," he murmured. "One pair to guide the ship, one to retain their individuality. Remarkable." As the original Patrick and Petra began to stabilize under Dr. Rodriguez's care, their replicated selves, fully integrated with the seed ship, initiated the process of creating the life bubble network. The ship hummed with power, launching seed pods towards distant star systems, each containing the genetic information and terraforming technology needed to establish new outposts of life. In orbit, the Vork's fleet held their position, their initial hostility replaced by cautious curiosity. A new transmission came through, and Colonel Hartman found himself face-to-face with Krozake, the Vork's leader. "Your seed ship's power is impressive," Krozake growled, his reptilian features twisted in a mixture of respect and wariness. "We propose an alliance. Our fleet will aid in your defense against this unraveling. In exchange, we ask for sanctuary." Colonel Hartman exchanged glances with Captain Alara, who had joined him on the surface. After a moment of silent communication, he turned back to the Vork's leader. "We accept your offer, Krozake, but know this. Any betrayal will be met with the full force of the seed ship's power." As the unlikely alliance took shape, the first life bubbles began to form in distant parts of the galaxy, creating safe havens against the encroaching unraveling. The original Patrick and Petra, now recovered enough to stand, watched the unfolding events on the ship's holographic displays. Their replicated selves worked tirelessly, guiding the seed ship's incredible power to protect and propagate life. The unraveling continued its relentless approach, a tide of cosmic destruction that threatened to engulf everything in its path. But for the first time since its detection, there was hope. The combined forces of humans, Iridians, Zhur, and Vork stood united, ready to face the greatest challenge the galaxy had ever known. As seed pods streaked across the star-studded sky, Patrick turned to Petra, their hands clasped tightly. "What happens now?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Petra's eyes reflected the light of distant stars as she replied, "We fight. We build. We survive." The seed ship thrummed with energy, its ancient purpose finally fulfilled. The race against time had begun, and the fate of countless worlds hung in the balance. The seed ship thrummed with energy, its ancient purpose finally fulfilled. The race against time had begun, and the fate of countless worlds hung in the balance. As the alliance between humans, Iridians, Zhur, and Vork solidified, Patrick and Petra found themselves at the center of an unprecedented cosmic drama. Dr. Rodriguez worked tirelessly to stabilize the couple's condition in the medical bay. The nanite solution she had developed coursed through their bodies, regulating their connection to the ship's systems. Patrick blinked, his vision clearing as he slowly regained consciousness. "Petra," he called out, his voice hoarse. "I'm here," she replied, reaching out to grasp his hand. Their fingers intertwined, and a spark of energy passed between them. As they lay side by side, Patrick and Petra watched in awe as their replicated selves guided the seed ship's operations on a nearby monitor. The sight was surreal, like looking into a living mirror that moved with purpose and power beyond their comprehension. "How are you feeling?" Dr. Rodriguez asked, approaching with a medical scanner. "Strange," Patrick admitted. "It's like I can still feel the ship, but distant." Petra nodded in agreement. "It's as if we're echoes of ourselves." Before Dr. Rodriguez could respond, an alarm blared through the ship's communication system. Captain Alara's voice crackled over the intercom, tense and urgent. "All personnel be advised. We have a situation. A Vork splinter group has broken away from Krozake's main fleet and is attempting to infiltrate the seed ship. All security teams, report to your designated stations immediately." Colonel Hartman's gruff voice followed. "This is Colonel Hartman. I'm assembling a joint task force to repel these infiltrators." We'll show them what this alliance can do. The medical bay erupted into a flurry of activity as staff prepared for potential casualties. Dr. Rodriguez turned to Patrick and Petra, her expression stern. You two stay put. You're still recovering, and we don't know the full extent of your condition yet. As the doctor moved away to prep her equipment, Patrick and Petra exchanged worried glances. The ship shuddered, rocked by an impact. We can't just lie here, Petra whispered, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing with agitation. Patrick nodded, about to respond when a blinding flash of energy struck the medical bay. Alarm shrieked as equipment sparked and sputtered. Through the haze of smoke, Patrick saw Dr. Rodriguez slumped against a console, unconscious. "Doc!" he called out, struggling to sit up. Petra was already on her feet, swaying slightly as she tried to regain her balance. "Patrick, look!" He followed her gaze to his own arm, watching in amazement as his skin shifted color and texture to match the medical bed he'd been lying on. What the... Before they could process this new development, the doors to the medical bay hissed open. 3 Vorax infiltrators burst in, their reptilian features twisted in snarls of triumph. "The seed ship's secrets will be ours." One of them growled, raising a crackling energy weapon. Patrick acted on instinct, his body adapting to blend seamlessly with the environment. The Vorax's eyes swept past him, unseeing. Petra, meanwhile, felt a surge of power coursing through her body. She raised her hands, and arcs of electricity danced between her fingers. With a thought, she sent a pulse of electromagnetic energy toward the intruders. Their weapons sputtered and died, leaving them momentarily stunned. Patrick seized the opportunity, launching himself from his hiding spot. His fist connected with the nearest Vorax's jaw, sending the alien sprawling. Petra followed up with another electromagnetic pulse, this time targeting the Vorax's neural systems. The remaining 2 infiltrators collapsed, twitching. As quickly as it had begun, the skirmish was over. Patrick and Petra stood amid the unconscious Vorax, breathing heavily. "Did we just..." Patrick began, looking at his hands in disbelief. Petra nodded, equally amazed. "I think we did." The door slid open again, this time revealing Colonel Hartman and a security team. The colonel's eyes widened as he took in the scene. "Well, I'll be damned," he muttered, holstering his weapon. "Looks like you two have been holding out on us." As the security team secured the Vorax infiltrators, Dr. Rodriguez regained consciousness. She immediately set to work examining Patrick and Petra, her scientific curiosity overriding her earlier caution. "Fascinating," she murmured, studying the readings on her scanner. "The nanite solution must have interacted with your hybrid physiology in ways we couldn't have predicted. Patrick, you've developed some kind of adaptive camouflage. And Petra, you're generating controlled electromagnetic fields." Zalkirin entered the medical bay, his multifaceted eyes gleaming with excitement. "Colonel, you need to see this," he said, gesturing to a nearby console. "I've made a discovery about the unraveling." As the group gathered around the display, Zalkirin explained his findings. The unraveling, it seemed, was not a natural phenomenon, but the result of an ancient weapon activated by a long-extinct species. Captain Alera's voice came through the communications system once more. "Colonel, we're picking up an anomaly at the edge of the galaxy. The replicated Patrick and Petra are detecting some kind of hidden structure." The implications of this new information hung heavy in the air. Colonel Hartman turned to the group, his expression grim but determined. "It looks like we've got a new mission," he said. "We need to investigate the structure. It might be our only chance to stop the unraveling at its source." Patrick and Petra exchanged glances, their newly discovered abilities humming just beneath their skin. They knew, without a doubt, that they would be at the forefront of this crucial mission. As preparations began for their journey into the unknown, the siege ship continued its work, a beacon of hope against the encroaching darkness of the unraveling. The siege ship continued its work, a beacon of hope against the encroaching darkness of the unraveling. However, the newly formed alliance knew that hope alone wouldn't be enough. They needed action. Colonel Hartman assembled a small, specialized team for the crucial mission to investigate the mysterious structure at the edge of the galaxy. Patrick and Petra, with their newfound abilities, were at the core of this team. Joining them were Zalkirin, whose expertise in alien technology was invaluable, and ZYX, a Vorix engineer who had proven his loyalty during the recent skirmish. As they prepared to depart, Dr. Rodriguez approached Patrick and Petra, her face etched with concern. "I've prepared additional nanite solutions for you both," she said, handing them each a small case. "We don't know what you'll encounter out there, but these might help stabilize your condition if needed." Patrick nodded, his skin shifting subtly to match the metallic sheen of the case. "Thanks, Document. We'll be careful." The team boarded a modified Vorix ship, its systems augmented with seed ship technology to withstand the rigors of their mission. As they launched from the docking bay, the vast expanse of space stretched out before them, teeming with stars and the faint, shimmering barriers of the life bubbles. Their journey was initially uneventful, the ship cutting through the void with precision. Patrick and Petra sat side by side in the cockpit, their hands occasionally brushing as they monitored the ship's systems. The connection between them had grown stronger since their replication, an unspoken understanding flowing between them like an electric current. Suddenly, a shimmering energy field enveloped the ship, its iridescent surface rippling like water. Alarms blared as the ship's systems began to malfunction. "What's happening?" Colonel Hartman demanded, his knuckles tightening as he gripped his seat. ZYX's clawed hands danced over the control panel. "Unknown energy signature," he growled. "It's interfering with our navigation systems." Petra closed her eyes, reaching out with her electromagnetic senses. "It's pulling us," she said, her voice strained. "I can feel it tugging at the ship's magnetic field." The energy field intensified, and the ship lurched violently. Patrick's skin rippled, instinctively trying to adapt to the shifting energies around them. "We're off course," he reported, his eyes fixed on the navigation display. "Being pulled towards something." Zalkirin's multifaceted eyes scanned the readings on his console. "Fascinating," he murmured. "This energy signature. It's unlike anything I've ever seen." The ship shuddered as it was dragged through space, its occupants helpless against the mysterious force. Suddenly, a planet materialized before them, its surface a riot of colors and bioluminescence. "Brace for impact," Colonel Hartman shouted as the ship plummeted towards the alien world. With a bone-jarring thud, the ship came to rest in a clearing surrounded by towering, glowing vegetation. As the team regained their bearings, Patrick's skin shifted to match the vibrant hues of their new environment. "Everyone okay?" Colonel Hartman asked, his voice gruff but tinged with concern. A chorus of affirmatives sounded as the team checked themselves and their equipment. Zalkirin was already at work, his delicate appendages manipulating a handheld scanner. "The atmosphere appears breathable," he reported, "but the biological and energy readings are extraordinary." As they exited the ship, the team found themselves immersed in a world of living light. Bioluminescent plants pulsed with gentle rhythms, casting an ethereal glow over the alien landscape. Patrick's chameleon-like skin adapted seamlessly, allowing him to blend in with the radiant flora. Petra gasped, her hand flying to her temple. "I can feel something," she said, "like a low hum in the back of my mind." Before anyone could respond, movement caught their attention. From the dense undergrowth emerged a group of beings unlike any they had encountered before. Humanoid in shape, their skin shimmered with iridescent patterns, and their large, expressive eyes regarded the newcomers with a mixture of wariness and curiosity. One of the beings, a female with intricate, swirling patterns across her skin, stepped forward. Her body pulsed with light, and to the team's amazement, Petra's eyes widened in understanding. I can understand her, Petra said, her own skin beginning to glow faintly in response. She's communicating through bioluminescence. Her name is Zarlux, and this planet is called Luminose. Colonel Hartman stepped forward, his posture non-threatening but alert. Can you tell her we come in peace? We need their help. Petra nodded, her skin pulsing with newfound patterns as she attempted to communicate. Zarlux's eyes widened, and she responded with a complex series of light patterns. She says Luminose exists in a pocket dimension. Petra translated, her voice filled with awe. They've been shielded from the unraveling, but their defenses are failing. Zalkirin chittered excitedly. Colonel, my scans indicate technology similar to the seed ship. This planet could hold the key to stopping the unraveling. As the team absorbed this information, Patrick noticed his own skin beginning to develop faint, glowing patterns. He exchanged a look with Petra, both realizing that their hybrid physiology was once again adapting to their new environment. Colonel Hartman's mind raced with the strategic implications of their discovery. Tell Zarlux we propose an alliance, he said to Petra. We'll help repair their defenses if they assist us in locating the control center for the weapon causing the unraveling. As Petra relayed the message, the team waited tensely for the response. The fate of the galactic realm hung in the balance, and their unexpected detour to Luminose might just be the key to salvation. Zarlux's skin pulsed with a complex pattern of lights, her large eyes fixed intently on the group. Petra's brow furrowed in concentration as she interpreted the message. She says she'll bring our proposal to their governing council, Petra translated. In the meantime, we're welcome to stay and repair our ship. Colonel Hartman nodded, his expression a mixture of relief and tenacity. All right, team. Let's get to work on those repairs. We need to be ready to move as soon as we get the council's decision. As the group dispersed to begin their tasks, Patrick and Petra found themselves drawn to the vibrant jungle surrounding them. Their unique abilities, honed by their experiences on the seed ship, proved invaluable in this alien environment. Patrick's adaptive camouflage allowed him to move unseen through the dense foliage, collecting rare materials needed for the ship's repairs. His skin shifted and shimmered, perfectly mimicking the bioluminescent patterns of the local flora. Meanwhile, Petra's electromagnetic control helped stabilize the ship's damage systems. She worked alongside ZYX, her hands dancing over the control panels as she manipulated energy fields with increasing precision. As they worked, both Patrick and Petra noticed the intensification of the glowing patterns on their skin. The close proximity to the Lumina and their unique form of communication seemed to be affecting them in ways they couldn't have anticipated. Zalkirin, ever the scientist, observed these changes with fascination. Your hybrid physiology continues to adapt, he noted, his multifaceted eyes gleaming. It's as if you're becoming more attuned to this planet and its inhabitants. As night fell on Luminose, casting the jungle in a breathtaking display of bioluminescence, the team gathered to discuss their findings. ZYX approached the group, his reptilian features set in an expression of excitement. I've made a discovery, the Vorix engineer announced. While examining the Luminan technology, I found evidence that suggests a connection between the Lumina and the creators of the seed ship. The implications of this revelation hung heavy in the air. If the Lumina were indeed descendants of the same ancient species that created both the seed ship and the weapon causing the unraveling, it could mean that the key to stopping the cosmic threat lay hidden within Luminan culture and technology. As the team processed this information, a soft glow appeared at the edge of the clearing. Zarlux emerged from the jungle, her skin pulsing with urgent patterns. Petra's eyes widened as she interpreted the message. The council has reached a decision, she announced, her voice tinged with anticipation. They're granting us access to their ancestral archives. The team exchanged looks of cautious optimism. They were one step closer to unraveling the mystery of the unraveling itself. But as they prepared to delve into the ancient knowledge of the Lumina, none of them could have predicted the true scope of the challenge that lay ahead, or the sacrifices it would demand of them all. As the team absorbed the implications of their discoveries on Luminos, they knew their next steps would be crucial. The connection between the Lumina and the creators of the Seed ship opened up new possibilities, but also new dangers. Zaralux led the group through the bioluminescent jungle, her skin pulsing with intricate patterns that lit their way. They arrived at a massive structure, its walls shimmering with a soft, otherworldly glow. As they entered, Patrick and Petra felt a strange, tingling sensation coursing through their bodies. "This is our ancestral archive," Zaralux communicated through her light patterns, which Petra translated for the others. "But it is also much more. It houses our most advanced technology, including an energy chamber that may help you in your quest." Colonel Hartman's eyes narrowed. "What kind of help are we talking about?" Zaralux's skin flickered with a complex series of patterns. Petra's eyes widened as she interpreted. "She says the chamber can enhance our abilities, specifically Patrick's and mine. It could give us the power we need to confront whatever is causing the unraveling." Zalkirin chittered excitedly, his multifaceted eyes gleaming. "Fascinating. The potential applications of such technology are astounding." Colonel Hartman held up a hand. "Hold on. We need to consider the risks. Patrick, Petra, this is your call. Are you willing to undergo this procedure?" Patrick and Petra exchanged a long look, their connection allowing them to communicate without words. Finally, they nodded in unison. "We'll do it," Patrick said firmly. "If it gives us a chance to stop the unraveling, we have to try." The team followed Zaralux deeper into the structure, eventually reaching a circular chamber. At its center stood two cylindrical pods, pulsing with energy. Patrick and Petra stepped forward, their skin already beginning to glow in response to the ambient energy. As they entered the pods, the chamber came to life. Energy crackled around them, and their bodies began to levitate. The team watched in awe as Patrick and Petra's forms were engulfed in a blinding light. Moments later, the light faded, and the pods opened with a soft hiss. Patrick and Petra emerged, their appearances dramatically altered. Patrick's skin now rippled with colors and patterns, perfectly mimicking his surroundings. Petra's body was surrounded by a shimmering electromagnetic field, visible to the naked eye. Their eyes had changed too, now resembling swirling galaxies. As they looked at each other, they gasped in unison, overwhelmed by the intensity of their mental connection. "I can feel everything you're feeling," Petra whispered, her voice filled with wonder. Patrick nodded, equally amazed. "It's like we're one person in two bodies." Colonel Hartman approached them cautiously. "How do you feel?" "Incredible," Patrick replied, his skin shifting to match the colonel's uniform. "I feel like I could blend into any environment, become practically invisible." Petra raised her hand, watching the energy field around it pulse and shift. "And I can sense every electromagnetic field around us. I think I could manipulate them with just a thought." Zalkirin and ZYX immediately set to work, recalibrating their equipment to account for Patrick and Petra's new abilities. As they worked, a new figure entered the chamber. "This is Lyra Nova," Zaralux introduced through her light patterns. "She is our foremost expert on ancient technologies. She will accompany you on your mission." Lyra Nova stepped forward, her skin pulsing with patterns of curiosity and excitement. "I've studied the writings of our ancestors for years," she said, her voice translated by Petra. "I believe I can help you understand and potentially deactivate the weapon causing the unraveling." As the team prepared for their departure, Zaralux presented Patrick and Petra with two sleek, form-fitting suits. "These are Luminan battle suits," she explained. "They will amplify your new abilities and provide protection." Patrick and Petra donned the suits, marveling at how they seemed to meld with their altered physiology. The suits shimmered with bioluminescent patterns, responding to their thoughts and movements. With their preparations complete, the team boarded their upgraded Vorix ship. The vessel hummed with new energy, its systems now integrated with Luminen technology. As they prepared for takeoff, Lyra Nova input the coordinates from ancient star charts into the ship's navigation system. "These should guide us to the weapons control center," she said. "But be warned, the path will not be easy." The ship lifted off, piercing through the barrier of Luminosa's pocket dimension. As they emerged into normal space, a horrifying sight greeted them. The unraveling had spread further than they had imagined. Entire star systems consumed by the destructive energy wave. Patrick and Petra, utilizing their enhanced abilities, interfaced directly with the ship systems. Their hybrid nature allowed them to interpret the complex Luminen star charts and plot a course through the chaos. As they navigated through the affected space, they encountered intense gravitational distortions and temporal anomalies. Patrick's adaptive camouflage extended to the ship's hull, helping them avoid detection by the swirling energies of the unraveling. Petra's electromagnetic control stabilized their systems, keeping them on course through the turbulent space. Suddenly, a faint signal caught their attention. Colonel Hartman leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "Is that a distress call?" Lyra Nova confirmed, her fingers dancing over the console. "It's coming from a nearby planet, one that's about to be consumed by the unraveling." The colonel's fist tight as he weighed their options. Finally, he nodded. "We can't ignore it. Set a course for that planet. We'll do what we can to help." As they approached the doomed world, the team braced themselves for what they might find, knowing that every moment brought them closer to their ultimate confrontation with the source of the unraveling. As they approached the doomed world, the team could see the destructive energy wave looming on the horizon, consuming everything in its path. The ship touched down on the planet's surface, and the team disembarked quickly. Patrick's skin shifted to match the alien terrain, while Petra's electromagnetic field pulsed with heightened sensitivity. "Life signs detected," Zalkiran announced, his multifaceted eyes scanning a handheld device. "Approximately 2 kilometers northeast." Colonel Hartman nodded. "Let's move. We don't have much time." As they made their way through the alien landscape, Patrick and Petra's enhanced senses proved invaluable. Patrick's camouflage allowed him to scout ahead undetected, while Petra's electromagnetic control helped navigate around dangerous energy pockets left by the approaching unraveling. They found a group of alien survivors huddled in a cave, their bioluminescent skin flickering weakly. Lyra Nova stepped forward, her own skin pulsing with soothing patterns. "We're here to help," she communicated through light signals, which Petra translated for the rest of the team. The aliens' relief was palpable as the team began evacuating them to the ship. As the last survivor boarded, the ground beneath them shuddered violently. "The unraveling is accelerating," ZYX warned, his reptilian features taut with concern. "We need to leave now." The ship took off just as the wave of destruction reached their position. Petra extended her electromagnetic field around the vessel, stabilizing it against the turbulent energies. Patrick's camouflage spread across the hull, helping to deflect the worst of the unraveling's effects. As they broke free of the planet's atmosphere, a massive structure loomed before them. It was a space station, ancient beyond measure, its architecture a blend of organic and mechanical elements. "That's it," Lyra Nova breathed, her eyes wide. "The Weapons Control Center." Colonel Hartman's voice was grim as he gave the order. "Take us in." The ship docked with the station, locking onto an airlock that looked like it hadn't been used in millennia. As the team prepared to disembark, Patrick and Petra donned their Luminen battle suits, feeling the advanced technology merge seamlessly with their enhanced physiology. They led the way into the station, their bodies glowing softly in the dim interior. The corridors were a maze of pulsing energy conduits and alien technology, the air thick with an electric charge that made their skin tingle. Patrick's camouflage shifted constantly, adapting to the changing surfaces around them. Petra's electromagnetic sense stretched out, mapping the energy flows of the station. The rest of the team followed closely, each equipped with specialized gear to navigate the hazardous environment. As they moved deeper into the station, Patrick and Petra found themselves drawn to a central data hub. Their hybrid nature allowed them to interface directly with the ancient systems, their minds flooded with a torrent of information. The station is powered by a core of exotic matter, Patrick reported, his voice strained from the mental effort. It's what fuels the unraveling weapon. Petra added, the control room is several levels down, but the path is treacherous. The station's internal structure is unstable. They pressed on, navigating winding corridors and avoiding pockets of destructive energy. Suddenly, the walls around them came to life. Swarms of nanobots emerged, their tiny forms glinting in the low light. Automated defense system, Zalkirin warned, raising his weapon. Patrick's camouflage kicked into overdrive, rendering him nearly invisible to the swarm. Petra focused her electromagnetic powers, creating disruptions in the nanobots' coordination. The air crackled with energy as the rest of the team fought off the mechanical attackers with their advanced weaponry. They pushed through the onslaught, finally reaching the entrance to the control room. An energy barrier pulsed before them, its surface rippling with complex patterns. Kale stepped forward, holding up the ancient artifact they had acquired on their journey. "Let me try something," he said, his voice tight with concentration. The artifact began to glow, resonating with the barrier's energy. Slowly, an opening formed in the field. Patrick and Petra didn't hesitate, stepping through into the control room beyond. Inside, they found themselves face to face with a massive crystalline structure, its facets pulsing with otherworldly light. As they approached, tendrils of energy reached out, connecting with their luminous suits. "This is it," Petra said, her voice filled with awe and drive. "The main control interface for the weapon." Patrick nodded, his skin rippling with anticipation. "Let's end this." They reached out, their hybrid physiology allowing them to withstand the intense energy fields as they interfaced with the crystal. For a moment, it seemed like they had succeeded. Then, without warning, the crystal structure began to fragment. Shards of crystal scattered throughout the room, each containing a portion of the control system. Alarms blared as the station shuttered around them. "What's happening?" Colonel Hartman demanded as he and the others entered the room. Patrick's face was grim as he explained, "We triggered a failsafe. The control system has been distributed throughout the station. We can't deactivate it from here." Petra added, "And the station's core is becoming unstable. If we don't act fast, it could implode and release a catastrophic amount of energy." Colonel Hartman's mind raced, quickly formulating a plan. "We'll split up. Each team takes a section of the station. Find those crystal shards and neutralize them. Patrick, Petra, you two head for the power core. See if you can stabilize it." As the teams prepared to separate, the station groaned ominously around them. The race against time had begun, with the future of the cosmos hanging in the balance. Balance. The team exchanged grim looks, knowing that the fate of countless worlds rested on their success. Patrick and Petra shared a silent glance, their hybrid physiology allowing them to communicate without words. They both realized the same thing. Their unique abilities made them the only ones capable of containing the station's volatile energy. "Colonel," Patrick said, his skin rippling with tenacity, "Petra and I need to stay behind." Colonel Hartman's eyes widened. "Absolutely not. We're all getting out of here together." Petra shook her head, her electromagnetic field pulsing rapidly. "There's no time to argue. Our hybrid physiology is the only thing that can stabilize the core and disperse the unraveling energy safely." The colonel opened his mouth to protest, but the look in their eyes stopped him. He understood the weight of their decision. "You're sure about this?" he asked, his voice heavy. Patrick nodded. "It's the only way." The station shuddered violently, punctuating the urgency of their situation. Colonel Hartman's eyebrows furrowed as he made the difficult decision. "Everyone, back to the ship. Now!" he ordered. As the team rushed towards the exit, Lyra Nova paused, her skin pulsing with a complex pattern of emotions. "Your sacrifice will not be forgotten," she communicated to Patrick and Petra. Zalkirin's multifaceted eyes gleamed with respect. "May your journey be swift and your purpose true," he said, offering a traditional Iridian blessing. The team boarded their ship, with Zalkirin and Lyra Nova immediately setting to work on boosting the vessel's shields. The ship systems hummed with increased power as they prepared for departure. Inside the station, Patrick and Petra stood before the fractured crystal structure. Their bodies began to glow as they fully merged their consciousness with the station systems. "Ready?" Patrick asked, his form starting to blur at the edges. Petra nodded, her electromagnetic field expanding to encompass the entire room. "Let's do this." They reached out, their minds interfacing directly with the exotic matter core. The surge of power was overwhelming, but their hybrid nature allowed them to channel it effectively. Outside, the team's ship detached from the station, maneuvering to a safe distance. Colonel Hartman watched the station through the view screen, his hands clenched tightly. Patrick and Petra initiated a complex sequence, their combined abilities working in perfect harmony. Energy coursed through their bodies as they redirected the power of the unraveling weapon. The station began to pulse with blinding light. Massive tendrils of energy erupted from its surface, reaching out into space. "Brace for impact," Colonel Hartman shouted, as a massive energy wave expanded outward from the station. The ship's shields flared as the outer edges of the wave struck them. The vessel shuddered violently, systems flickering under the strain. Across the galaxy, the energy wave spread rapidly. But instead of destruction, it brought restoration. Collapsing star systems began to stabilize. The life bubbles created by the siege ship expanded, merging into a vast protective field that spanned the galaxy. As the energy wave subsided, the team's ship regained stability. Zalkirin's claws danced over the control panel as he ran a series of scans. The station. "It's gone," he reported, his voice filled with awe. "It's been transformed into some kind of energy vortex." Lyra Nova leaned forward, her skin pulsing with curiosity. "I'm detecting two distinct energy signatures at the center of the vortex. They match Patrick and Petra's biosignatures." Colonel Hartman straightened in his seat. "Can we reach them?" Zyax shook his head, his reptilian features creased with concern. "Negative. The gravitational distortions around the vortex are too intense. We can't get close enough." "Then we'll try another way," the colonel said firmly. "Prepare to transmit on all frequencies. We're going to establish contact." The team sent out a series of coded transmissions, each more complex than the last. Minutes stretched into hours as they waited for a response. Finally, the ship's communications array lit up. A series of intricate energy pulses flooded their systems. Lyra Nova's eyes widened as she deciphered the message. "It's a set of coordinates," she announced. "They're leading us somewhere." The ship's engines hummed to life as they plotted a course to the mysterious destination. As they traveled, the team couldn't help but wonder what they would find and what had become of Patrick and Petra. The coordinates led them to a hidden star system, far from the usual space lanes. As they approached, they detected a massive structure orbiting a binary star. "It's a luminant outpost," Lyra Nova breathed, her skin pulsing with excitement. "One I've never seen in any of our records." The ship docked with the ancient outpost, its systems interfacing smoothly with the luminant technology. As the team disembarked, they were greeted by a sight that made them all stop in their tracks. A holographic projection flickered to life before them, resolving into the familiar forms of Patrick and Petra. But there was something different about them. Their eyes seemed to hold the depth of galaxies, and their bodies shimmered with otherworldly energy. "Welcome," the holographic Patrick said, his voice echoing with newfound power. "We've been waiting for you." The team stared in amazement, realizing that their journey was just the beginning. The transformation of Patrick and Petra was just the beginning of a new chapter in their cosmic adventure. The team stood in awe before the holographic projections of Patrick and Petra, their minds struggling to comprehend the transformation they witnessed. But their moment of wonder was abruptly shattered as alarms blared throughout the ancient Luminant outpost. "Warning! Genetic synthesis chamber experiencing critical power fluctuations," an automated voice announced, echoing through the cavernous halls. Colonel Hartman snapped into action. "Everyone, back to the ship, now!" As they raced through the corridors, the outpost structure groaned and shuddered. Energy conduits pulsed with an erratic, dangerous rhythm. They reached the docking bay just as another violent tremor shook the station. "What's happening?" ZYX called out, his scales shifting color with agitation. Dr. Rodriguez, already at a console, furiously analyzed the incoming data. "The restoration process is drawing massive amounts of power. It's causing a cascade effect throughout the outpost systems." The team boarded their ship, and Captain Alara's hands flew over the controls, initiating the launch sequence. But as the engines roared to life, a sudden surge of energy coursed through the vessel. "We've lost navigation control," Alara shouted, her fingers dancing across the flickering displays. "The ship's emergency protocols have been triggered." The siege ship tore free from its docking clamps, accelerating at a breakneck pace away from the outpost. Through the view screen, they watched as the ancient structure receded into the distance, energy arcing across its surface like lightning. Colonel Hartman gripped the back of Alara's chair. "Can you regain control?" She shook her head, frustration evident in her voice. "Negative. The ship's core is being drained by some kind of external power draw. It's interfering with all primary systems." In the depths of the ship, the genetic synthesis chamber hummed with otherworldly energy. Its protective shell began to crack, tendrils of light seeping through the fissures. Suddenly, it shattered with a thunderous boom, releasing a blinding flash that swept through the vessel. The artificial gravity failed, plunging the ship into chaos. Crew members floated helplessly, grasping for handholds as equipment drifted freely through the air. Amidst the confusion, a dark figure moved with purpose. Drex, the captured purist leader, had broken free of his restraints. Using the zero gravity to his advantage, he propelled himself through the corridors with practiced ease. He reached the communication array, his fingers flying over the controls. "Attention all purist cells," he transmitted, his voice low and urgent. "This is Commander Drex. I've located the siege ship. Sending coordinates now. Converge and intercept." In the makeshift lab, Dr. Rodriguez and Zalkiran struggled to stabilize their equipment in the zero-gravity environment. Screens flickered with rapidly changing data as they monitored the restoration process. "The synthesis chamber's containment failure has altered the genetic template," Zalkiran reported, his multifaceted eyes darting between displays. "It's incorporating DNA from multiple species we've encountered." Dr. Rodriguez's eyes widened as she processed the implications. "The changes are too rapid, too complex. We can't predict the outcome." The ship lurched violently as it entered an uncharted star system. Through the view screen, a massive structure came into view, orbiting a distant planet. Its design was a mind-bending fusion of organic and mechanical elements, reminiscent of both the unraveling weapons control station and luminant architecture. "Gravitational field detected," the ship's computer announced. "Unable to alter course. Prepare for emergency landing." Colonel Hartman's voice rang out over the ship-wide communication system. All hands, brace for impact. ZYX, Lyra Nova, focus on reinforcing our shields. Alara, do what you can to give us a soft landing. As the siege ship plummeted towards the structure's surface, the genetic synthesis chamber reached its final stage. A thick, luminescent mist spilled out, filling the surrounding compartments. Within the swirling vapor, two figures began to take shape. The ship struck the surface with a bone-jarring impact, skidding across the alien landscape before grinding to a halt. As the dust settled, the team emerged from the battered vessel, weapons at the ready. Before them stretched a vast, otherworldly terrain. The ground beneath their feet seemed to pulse with life, reshaping itself in response to their presence. Geometric patterns flowed across the surface, forming paths and structures that beckoned them forward. From the mist-filled chamber emerged Patrick and Petra, but they were changed beyond recognition. Their bodies were a harmonious blend of human and alien characteristics, shimmering with an inner light that hinted at cosmic awareness. Patrick's eyes, now reminiscent of swirling galaxies, scanned the horizon. This place, it's alive. I can feel its energy flowing through me. Petra nodded, her skin rippling with patterns of light. It's more than just a structure. It's a vast network, similar to the dispersed energy of the unraveling weapon. As the team ventured further from the ship, holographic projections flickered to life around them. Alien species, some familiar and others utterly unknown, appeared and disappeared like ghosts. Each projection seemed to tell a fragment of a vast, cosmic story. Colonel Hartman observed the alien landscape with a mix of awe and caution. We need to establish a defensive perimeter. Alara, salvage what weapons and equipment you can from the ship. ZYX, set up those stealth field generators. We don't know what's out there or what's coming for us. As night fell, the sky above erupted in a spectacular display. Multiple moons of varying sizes and colors danced across the heavens, their gravitational interplay creating auroras and energy discharges that lit up the alien world. In the heart of the crashed siege ship, Dr. Rodriguez and her team worked tirelessly in their makeshift lab. They analyzed samples from the environment, seeking to understand its composition and its effects on Patrick and Petra's new physiology. Suddenly, Patrick and Petra's eyes widened in unison, their bodies glowing with increased intensity. This world, Patrick began, his voice resonating with newfound power. It's not just a structure, Petra continued, completing his thought. It's a planet-sized supercomputer, running simulations of countless alien civilizations. Before the team could process this revelation, a shrill alarm cut through the air. ZYX's stealth field generators had detected something approaching. Multiple vessels detected, the Vork's technician reported, his scales shifting to a deep blue. Configuration matches known purist designs. Colonel Hartman's face hardened as he surveyed his team. The crashed siege ship, the mysterious alien world beneath their feet, and the approaching purist fleet created a perfect storm of danger and opportunity. Whatever secrets this planet-sized computer held, they needed to uncover them quickly. As the team prepared for the impending confrontation, Patrick and Petra shared a knowing look. Their newfound connection to this world might be the key to understanding the unraveling, its creators, and perhaps the future of all sentient life in the galaxy. But first, they had to survive the coming storm. Storm. As the team braced for the impending purist attack, Patrick and Petra's eyes glazed over, their bodies pulsing with an otherworldly light. They stood motionless, seemingly oblivious to the frantic preparations around them. What's happening to them? Colonel Hartman demanded, his voice taut with concern. Dr. Rodriguez rushed to their side, scanner in hand. Their neural activity is off the charts. It's as if they're interfacing with something. Indeed, Patrick and Petra had delved deep into the artificial world systems, their enhanced physiology allowing them to connect directly with the planet-sized supercomputer. As vast archives of data from countless alien civilizations flooded their minds, they spoke in unison, their voices resonating with newfound knowledge. This place. It's called the Nexus, Patrick began. Petra continued. Created by the precursors to preserve the knowledge and experiences of all sentient life in the galaxy. Their words barely registered with the team as alarms blared, signaling the approach of the Purist fleet. Colonel Hartman snapped into action, barking orders. ZYX, set up those sensor beacons. We need an early warning system. Ilera, Lyra Nova, salvage what you can from the ship's armory. Let's give these purists a warm welcome they won't forget. As the team scrambled to prepare their defenses, Patrick and Petra's bodies underwent further mutations. Their skin rippled and shifted, adapting to the alien technology surrounding them. They moved with fluid grace, hands dancing over invisible interfaces as they navigated the complex activation protocols of an ancient defense system. "We've found something," Patrick announced, his galaxy-like eyes fixed on a point in the distance. "A precursor defense system. If we can reactivate it." "Do it," Hartman ordered without hesitation. While Patrick and Petra worked to bring the ancient defenses online, Dr. Rodriguez and Zalkiran made a startling discovery. The Nexus's surface was composed of self-replicating nanomaterials. As they experimented with controlling these microscopic marvels, the landscape around them began to shift and change in unexpected ways. "Fascinating," Zalkiran marveled, his multifaceted eyes reflecting the undulating terrain. "With proper control, we could potentially repair the seed ship or even create new defensive structures." As night fell, the sky erupted in a spectacular display. The multiple moons orbiting the Nexus aligned, triggering a massive energy surge throughout the structure. Patrick and Petra gasped in unison, their connection to the Nexus systems suddenly amplified. "The unraveling," Petra whispered, her voice filled with awe. "It wasn't a weapon. It was an accident. The precursor's attempt to transcend physical existence." Before they could elaborate, ZYX's voice crackled over the comm system. "Purist fleet detected. Multiple vessel types, including heavy battleships and fighters. They're deploying probes to scan the surface." The team watched in tense silence as massive structures began to emerge from the Nexus's surface, reconfiguring the landscape around their position. Energy weapons of unimaginable power aimed skyward, ready to defend against the approaching threat. Suddenly, holographic projections of various alien species appeared around them, flickering in and out of existence. The same images were being projected directly into the minds of the Purist crews, causing confusion and dissent among their ranks. "Now's our chance," Hartman declared. "Activate those defenses." Massive energy beams erupted from the newly emerged structures, striking the leading ships of the Purist fleet with devastating accuracy. Several vessels were disabled instantly, but the Purists quickly regrouped. "They're deploying jamming devices." Ilera shouted over the din of battle. "Our energy weapons are losing effectiveness." Swarms of Purist fighters descended upon their position, forcing the team to take cover in the partially repaired seed ship. The air filled with the scream of energy weapons and the thunderous impacts of explosions. Amidst the chaos, Patrick and Petra made a crucial discovery within the Nexus systems. Their eyes widened in shared realization as they uncovered a dormant program. A controlled version of the unraveling, Patrick explained breathlessly. It could alter the fabric of space-time on a localized scale. "Can you activate it?" Hartman asked, ducking as another explosion rocked the ship. Patrick and Petra exchanged a look of uncertainty. "We can try," Petra replied, "but the consequences could be unpredictable." As the Purist onslaught intensified, Patrick and Petra raced against time to understand and activate the reality-altering program. The fate of their team, and possibly the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. With each passing moment, the battle grew more desperate, the purest forces pressing their advantage. The team fought on, their weapons blazing against the relentless tide of purest attackers. The Nexus's defenses, though formidable, began to falter under the sustained assault. As the perimeter of their sanctuary grew smaller, Patrick and Petra delved deeper into the Nexus's systems, searching for the key to unlocking its full potential. The air crackled with energy as the battle raged on, the outcome uncertain. The team's grit was tested with each volley, each explosion that shook the very ground beneath their feet. Yet they fought on, knowing that surrender was not an option. In this moment, on this alien world, they stood as the last line of defense against the purest threat and the guardians of a power that could reshape the very fabric of the universe. The team's purpose faltered for a moment as the purest onslaught intensified, their weapons tearing through the Nexus's defenses with brutal efficiency. Suddenly, Patrick and Petra's bodies convulsed, their skin erupting with pulsating, circuitry-like patterns. Petra's eyes began to emit a soft, multicolored glow, casting eerie shadows across the battlefield. "Fall back." Colonel Hartman's voice cut through the chaos. "Regroup within the emerging structures." The team retreated, watching in awe as the nanomaterials comprising the Nexus's surface reacted to Patrick and Petra's presence. Protective barriers sprouted from the ground, shielding them from enemy fire, while weapon emplacements materialized, returning volleys against the purest ships. Dr. Rodriguez's eyes widened as she observed the phenomenon. Incredible! Their hybrid physiology is interfacing directly with the Nexus. Captain Alera's voice crackled over the comm system. "I've got an idea. Cover me." The team watched as Alera sprinted towards a downed purist fighter, her live form dodging energy blasts. With practiced ease, she slipped into the cockpit and began working on the controls. "Alera, what are you doing?" Hartman demanded. "Buying us some time," she replied, her voice tight with concentration. The fighter's engines roared to life, and Alera launched into the fray. She weaved through the purest formation, her stolen vessel sowing confusion among the enemy fleet. Purist ships turned their weapons on each other, unable to distinguish friend from foe. Meanwhile, Zalkirin and Lyranova huddled around a makeshift sensor array, analyzing the energy readings emanating from Patrick and Petra. "Fascinating," Zalkirin murmured, his multifaceted eyes reflecting cascading data streams. "Their hybrid biology is acting as a conduit for the Nexus's energy reserves." Lyranova nodded, her bioluminescent skin pulsing with excitement. "They're channeling and directing the structure's power in ways I never thought possible." A deafening rumble shook the ground, and the team looked up to see a massive purist dreadnought entering the system. Its hull bristled with weaponry, dwarfing the other ships in the fleet. "By the stars," Hartman breathed, his face pale. "That thing could shatter the entire planet." As if on cue, the dreadnought's main cannon began to charge, its maw glowing with ominous energy. Zewix's scales shifted to a deep purple as he assessed the situation. "I may be able to gather intel on that behemoth. Cover me." Before anyone could object, the Vork's technician activated his stealth field and disappeared into the chaos of battle. Minutes later, his voice crackled over the comm system. "I've accessed their tactical data. Transmitting dreadnought schematics now." Colonel Hartman's eyes narrowed as he studied the incoming data. A plan began to form in his mind. "Alera, form a strike team. Take Zalkirin and Lyranova. Your mission is to disable that dreadnought before it can fire." "Understood, Colonel," Alera replied, her voice steady despite the gravity of the task. As the strike team prepared for their daring assault, Patrick and Petra's connection to the Nexus deepened. Their eyes glazed over, lost in the vast datascape of the ancient supercomputer. "We've found it." Patrick's voice resonated with an otherworldly timbre. The activation sequence for the reality-altering program. "Do it," Hartman ordered, his voice tight with tension. Patrick and Petra's hands danced over invisible interfaces, their movements perfectly synchronized. The entire Nexus structure began to vibrate, emitting pulses of energy that rippled through space-time. The battlefield descended into chaos. Purist ships phased in and out of existence, their weapons fire bending in impossible trajectories. Some vessels collided with phantom versions of themselves, while others became trapped in localized time loops. Dr. Rodriguez, monitoring Patrick and Petra's vital signs, noticed alarming fluctuations in their neural patterns. "Colonel, the strain is killing them," she shouted, her voice tinged with panic. Despite the risk, Patrick and Petra pressed on, their bodies merging with the surrounding nanomaterials. Their consciousness expanded, encompassing more and more of the Nexus's vast databases. In the midst of the reality-warping madness, Ilara's strike team made their move. Using a combination of salvaged Purist fighters and Nexus-generated vehicles, they approached the massive dreadnought. "Target the power core," Zalkirin advised, his voice steady despite the chaos surrounding them. "I prepared charges that should overload their systems." As they fought their way through the dreadnought's defenses, the massive ship suddenly found itself out of phase with the rest of the battlefield. Its devastating main cannon fired, the energy beam harmlessly passing through the Nexus. Seizing the opportunity, Ilara's team planted the charges and retreated. The dreadnought's internal structure began to collapse, its massive form breaking apart in a spectacular display of destruction. The loss of their flagship sent the remaining Purist forces into disarray. Ships scattered, many caught in the reality distortion surrounding the Nexus. Some were flung into deep space, while others became fused with the very fabric of the structure they sought to destroy. As victory seemed within reach, Dr. Rodriguez's voice cut through the celebration. "We're losing them. Patrick and Petra are being absorbed into the Nexus." The team watched in horror as Patrick and Petra's physical forms began to dissolve, their consciousness expanding to fill the vast network of the ancient supercomputer. The battle was won, but at what cost? Dr. Rodriguez, her face set with purpose, turned to Lyra Nova. "We need to find a way to stabilize their condition. If we don't act fast, we'll lose them forever." As the remnants of the Purist fleet retreated or were consumed by the reality distortions, the team faced a new challenge. They had to find a way to save Patrick and Petra from complete absorption into the Nexus, all while dealing with the aftermath of the reality-altering battle and the scattered Purist forces across the system. The fate of their friends and the incredible power and knowledge contained within the Nexus hung in the balance. The team prepared themselves for what promised to be their most daunting task yet, knowing that the next few hours would determine not only Patrick and Petra's fate, but potentially the future of the entire galaxy. The aftermath of the reality-altering battle left the team breathless, their eyes fixed on the dissolving forms of Patrick and Petra. Dr. Rodriguez's urgent voice cut through the momentary stillness, galvanizing the group into action. "We need to stabilize the reality distortions and extract them from the Nexus," she said, her fingers flying over a handheld device. "Lyra Nova, I need your expertise in energy manipulation. We have to act fast." The Luminance scientist nodded, her bioluminescent skin pulsing with perseverance. Together, they hurried to a nearby console, their minds racing to develop a solution. Colonel Hartman's authoritative voice rang out across the battlefield. "Secure the area, round up any Purist survivors, and establish a detention center in one of these new structures." As the team scattered to their assigned tasks, Captain Ilara approached Zalkirin and ZYX. "We need to salvage what we can from the Purist ships. Focus on propulsion systems and weapons. We'll integrate them into the siege ship." The trio set off, navigating the chaotic landscape of twisted metal and pulsating energy fields. Ilara's keen eye for tactics guided them to the most valuable wreckage, while Zalkirin's technical expertise allowed for quick assessment and extraction of useful components. Meanwhile, Dr. Rodriguez and Lyra Nova worked feverishly to construct an extraction device. They fused luminant energy manipulation techniques with modified nanomaterials harvested from the Nexus's surface, creating a complex web of glowing tendrils. This should form a physical tether to their original states, Dr. Rodriguez explained, her voice tight with concentration. It's our best shot at pulling them back. As they activated the device, Patrick and Petra's consciousnesses began to disentangle from the vast network of the Nexus. Waves of reconfiguration rippled across the structure's surface, nanomaterials shifting and reforming in response to the extraction process. Suddenly, the ground trembled. Massive energy tendrils erupted from the Nexus, lashing out at the extraction site. The Nexus is fighting back, Lyra Nova shouted, her skin flashing with alarm. Colonel Hartman's voice crackled over the comm system. Defensive positions. Use the salvage purest weapons to hold off those tendrils. The team scrambled to form a perimeter, wielding unfamiliar alien weaponry against the writhing energy constructs. The air crackled with discharged energy as they fought to maintain the integrity of the extraction process. Amidst the chaos, Patrick and Petra's bodies slowly began to reform. The circuitry-like patterns on Patrick's skin now glowed with a soft, pulsating light, while Petra's eyes shimmered with an otherworldly radiance, perceiving layers of reality invisible to others. As the extraction reached its critical phase, a massive surge of energy pulsed through the Nexus. Deep within the structure, a hidden chamber activated, revealing a cryogenic pod. Energy spike detected, ZYX called out, his scales shifting to a deep blue. Something's happening inside the Nexus. Before they could investigate, long-range sensors blared a warning. Zalkirin's multifaceted eyes widened as he interpreted the data. Massive energy signature approaching at incredible speed. It appears to be a remnant of the original unraveling. The team exchanged worried glances, recognizing the gravity of this new threat. Zalkirin's mind raced, formulating a plan. We can use the seed ship, he proposed. With the purest tech we've salvaged, we might be able to create a controlled unraveling effect to neutralize the anomaly before it reaches us. As the team debated this risky strategy, a final surge of energy coursed through the extraction device. Patrick and Petra's bodies, now fully reformed but forever altered, collapsed to the ground. Dr. Rodriguez rushed to their side, her medical kit already in hand. They're in critical condition, she announced, her voice steady despite the urgency. I need to stabilize them immediately. As she worked, combining advanced human medical techniques with luminant healing practices, the rest of the team faced a daunting array of challenges before them. The approaching unraveling remnant threatened everything they had fought for, while the awakening precursor specimen promised answers to long-held questions about the Nexus and its creators. Colonel Hartman surveyed the scene, his mind already formulating strategies. Ilara prepped the seed ship for immediate launch. Zalkirin, ZYX, I need you to finish integrating those pure systems. We'll need every advantage we can get. As the team raced against time, the Nexus hummed with energy, its secrets still largely unexplored. The fate of not just their mission, but potentially the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. With Patrick and Petra's conditions uncertain and multiple threats looming, the team steeled themselves for the challenges ahead, knowing that their next actions would shape the course of events to come. Come, the team's focus shifted to the immediate challenges at hand, their purpose evident in their swift, purposeful movements. As Dr. Rodriguez tended to Patrick and Petra, their bodies pulsed with residual energy from the Nexus. Patrick's skin shimmered with intricate, circuit-like patterns, while Petra's eyes sparkled with an otherworldly gleam. The doctor's hands moved with practiced efficiency, combining advanced medical techniques with luminin healing practices. Their vitals are stabilizing, she announced, her voice permeated with cautious optimism. But these changes, they're unlike anything I've seen before. Colonel Hartman nodded, his expression grave. Keep monitoring them. We need them operational as soon as possible. Nearby, Zal Kieran and Captain Alara pored over schematics of the seed ship, their fingers tracing paths across holographic displays. If we reroute power from the auxiliary systems, Zal Kieran mused, his multifaceted eyes reflecting cascading data streams, we can boost the shield generators by 37%. Alara nodded, her tactical mind already several steps ahead. Good. We'll need every advantage against that unraveling remnant. As they worked, the ground beneath them trembled. The cryogenic pod deep within the Nexus hummed to life, its ancient systems awakening after eons of dormancy. A hush fell over the team as the pod's seal hissed open, revealing its occupant. A tall, ethereal being emerged, her iridescent skin catching the light in mesmerizing patterns. Multiple limbs moved with fluid grace as she stepped forward, her gaze sweeping across the assembled team. "I am Zaraef," she intoned, her voice a melody of harmonics. "Last of the precursors, creators of the Nexus." Dr. Rodriguez and Lyra Nova sprang into action, their fingers dancing across interfaces as they worked to establish a translation protocol. Moments later, Zaraeth's words became clear, carrying the weight of ancient knowledge. "The unraveling," she explained, her eyes filled with sorrow, "was never meant to be. It is the shadow of our hubris, a force of uncreation born from our quest for transcendence." As Zaraef shared her knowledge, the team's plans crystallized. The seed ship, now a hybrid of human, purist, and Nexus technologies, stood ready for launch. Its hull gleamed with newly integrated weaponry, capable of generating localized reality distortions. Patrick and Petra, their recovery accelerated by their altered physiology, insisted on joining the mission. Colonel Hartman's objections faded as Zarya presented them with ancient artifacts designed to amplify their connection to the Nexus. "Your link to the Nexus may be our salvation," the precursor said, her voice tinged with hope. As final preparations were made, the crew boarded the seed ship. Colonel Hartman took command, with Captain Alara at the helm. Zal Kieran and ZYX manned the engineering stations, while Patrick and Petra seated themselves before consoles pulsing with Nexus energy. The launch was smooth, the ship rising effortlessly from the Nexus's surface. As they left the atmosphere, the vastness of space stretched before them, marred by the approaching anomaly of the unraveling remnant. "Brace for gravitational distortions," Alara called out, her hands dancing across the controls. The ship lurched as it entered the anomaly's influence. Reality itself seemed to bend around them, stars streaking and warping in impossible patterns. Zal Kieran and ZYX worked feverishly, rerouting power and reinforcing structural integrity as the ship groaned under the strain. Patrick and Petra, their bodies glowing with energy, reached out with their minds. The precursor artifacts hummed, channeling the vast power of the Nexus through the ship's systems. A bubble of stable space formed around the vessel, allowing them to penetrate deeper into the heart of the anomaly. "Energy readings are off the charts," ZYX reported, his scales shifting to a deep violet. "But there's something else. Patterns in the chaos." Zal Kieran's eyes widened as he analyzed the data. It's information, encoded in the fabric of the unraveling itself. Colonel Hartman's decision was swift. "Change your plans. We're going to salvage what we can before collapsing this thing." The seed ship plunged deeper, riding waves of unraveling reality. Patrick and Petra strained to maintain their protective field, their bodies pulsing with increasing intensity. Sweat beaded on their foreheads as they channeled more power, their minds stretched to the breaking point. Captain Alara's piloting skills were put to the ultimate test as she navigated through shifting pockets of space-time. The ship barrel rolled and dove, narrowly avoiding tendrils of raw energy that threatened to tear them apart. Initiating data extraction, Zalkirin announced, his voice tight with concentration. The ship's systems hummed as they began to collect the encoded information. Streams of data flowed through the Nexus-enhanced computers, each byte a fragment of long-lost civilizations consumed by the original unraveling. Alarms blared as the strain on the ship's systems intensified. Power fluctuations rippled through the vessel, threatening to disable their defenses. Hull integrity at 62% and falling, ZYX reported, his claws flying over his console. Ilara's face was a mask of concentration as she executed a series of complex maneuvers, using the gravity wells within the anomaly to slingshot the ship through the densest concentrations of data. Data extraction at 89%, Zalkirin called out. We need more time. The unraveling remnant began to collapse in on itself, massive gravitational forces threatening to trap the siege ship in its death throes. The hull groaned under the immense pressure, warning lights flashing across every console. Initiating emergency escape sequence, Zalkirin announced, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. The hybrid engines roared to life, pushing beyond their intended limits. The siege ship accelerated, racing against the collapsing anomaly. Patrick and Petra, their bodies now pulsing with blinding energy, poured every ounce of their strength into maintaining the protective field. Reality itself seemed to tear apart around them as they hurtled towards the edge of the imploding, unraveling remnant. The fate of the ship, its crew, and the invaluable data they'd collected hung in the balance, their survival dependent on outrunning the very fabric of space-time as it unraveled behind them. For a heart-stopping moment, it seemed as if the siege ship would be consumed by the collapsing anomaly. Suddenly, the vessel burst free from the unraveling remnant's grasp. A blinding flash of energy engulfed them as they rocketed away from the imploding phenomenon. The ship tumbled wildly through space, systems blaring warnings as the hull groaned under the immense stress. Stabilizers offline, ZYX shouted, his scales flashing a frantic red. We're in an uncontrolled spin. Captain Ilara's hands flew across the controls, her face a mask of concentration, rerouting auxiliary power to stabilizers. Hang on. The ship's tumble slowed, but alarms continued to sound throughout the bridge. Zalkirin's multifaceted eyes darted between screens, assessing the damage. Hull integrity at 38% and falling, he reported, voice tight. We need to take pressure off the structural supports or we'll tear apart. Colonel Hartman turned to Patrick and Petra, their bodies pulsing with intense blue energy. Can you two do anything? Patrick nodded, his circuitry-like skin patterns glowing brighter. We'll try to reinforce the hull using the Nexus energy. The couple reached out, their minds linking with the precursor artifacts. A wave of blue energy rippled across the ship's exterior, creating a shimmering field that enveloped the battered hull. It's working, ZYX exclaimed. Hull integrity stabilizing at 42%. Captain Ilara's deft piloting, combined with the Nexus-powered shield, finally brought the ship under control. As the immediate danger passed, the crew took stock of their situation. Where are we? Colonel Hartman asked, studying the unfamiliar star field on the main view screen. Zalkirin consulted the long-range sensors. We've been thrown to the outer reaches of the star system. But, sir, there's something else. I'm detecting a massive energy surge coming from the Nexus. The Colonel's expression darkened. Plot a course back immediately. Whatever we did might have triggered something in that structure. As the siege ship began its journey back to the Nexus, Patrick and Petra found themselves overwhelmed by the influx of data they'd extracted from the unraveling remnant. Their enhanced cognitive abilities, a result of their deep connection to the Nexus, allowed them to process the information at an unprecedented rate. Colonel, Petra called out, her eyes glowing with an otherworldly light, we're uncovering incredible things. Fragments of civilizations we've never encountered, technologies beyond our comprehension. Patrick nodded, the patterns on his skin shifting as he sifted through the data. There are records of cosmic phenomena we've never observed before. It's overwhelming. Dr. Rodriguez approached them, medical scanner in hand. Your brain activity is off the charts. How do you feel? Like our minds have been expanded, Patrick replied. It's hard to describe, but it's as if we can see connections we never could before. As they neared the nexus, the ship's sensors detected a startling change. The structure's surface was in flux, its intricate geometries shifting and reconfiguring before their eyes. What's happening to it? Colonel Hartman demanded. Before anyone could respond, massive tendrils of energy burst forth from the nexus. They stretched out into space, forming an intricate web-like network around the planet. Captain Alara guided the ship through the energy field, her piloting skills put to the test as she navigated the ever-changing maze of tendrils. As they descended towards the surface, they saw Dr. Rodriguez, Lyranova, and Zarieth waiting for them. The moment the ship touched down, Zarieth approached, her iridescent skin shimmering with urgency. The data you retrieve has awakened a dormant program within the Nexus, she explained, her harmonious voice tinged with excitement and concern. What kind of program? Colonel Hartman asked as the team disembarked. A fail-safe designed by my people, Zarieth replied. It aims to create a galaxy-wide network of interconnected Nexus points. This network could prevent future unraveling events from occurring. The implications of her words hung heavy in the air. Colonel Hartman quickly sprang into action, ordering the establishment of a command center to monitor and coordinate the Nexus's expanding influence. The team worked tirelessly, setting up communication relays and sensor arrays. They tracked the progress of the energy tendrils as they spread across the star system and beyond. Holographic displays filled the command center, showing the ever-expanding network in real time. As the hours passed, the sensors detected something unexpected. Zalkirin's eyes widened as he interpreted the data. Colonel, we're picking up numerous habitable planets within range of the Nexus web, worlds that were previously hidden or unreachable to us. This changes everything, Colonel Hartman mused, studying the holographic star map. We may have just opened up new avenues for colonization, for preserving species threatened by the unraveling. Meanwhile, Patrick and Petra continued to process the extracted data, their connection to the Nexus deepening with each passing moment. Their physical changes became more pronounced, with Patrick's circuitry-like patterns spreading further across his body, and Petra's eyes developing the ability to project holographic images of the information they processed. Dr. Rodriguez watched them with growing concern. We need to monitor these changes closely, she said to Colonel Hartman. Their integration with the Nexus is advancing rapidly. We don't know the long-term effects this could have on their humanity. As the doctor began a series of tests on the couple, alarms blared from the communication station. Lyra Nova's skin flashed with surprise as she analyzed the incoming signal. Colonel, we're receiving a transmission, she announced. It's coming from the far reaches of the galaxy, encoded in a format similar to the data we extracted from the unraveling remnant. The team gathered around the communications array, their faces a mix of anticipation and apprehension, as Lyra Nova worked to decode the message. As the first fragments of the transmission became clear, a hush fell over the command center. It's from another group of survivors, Zalkirin breathed, his multifaceted eyes wide with amazement. They claim to have established their own Nexus-like structure. Colonel Hartman's mind raced with the implications of this discovery. He turned to face his team, his expression grave yet determined. We need to discuss our next moves carefully. This changes everything. As the colonel called for a strategy meeting, the energy tendrils of the Nexus continued to spread across the galaxy, weaving a web of possibilities and potential dangers. The fate of countless worlds now hung in the balance, with the seeds of a new cosmic order beginning to take root. The fate of countless worlds now hung in the balance, with the seeds of a new cosmic order beginning to take shape. As the team grappled with the implications of their discovery, a sudden alert blared through the command center. Zalkirin's multifaceted eyes widened as he analyzed the incoming data. "Colonel, long-range sensors are picking up something massive entering the system," he reported, his voice taut with urgency. Colonel Hartman strode to the main display, his brow furrowing as he studied the readouts. "What are we looking at?" "A fleet, sir," Zalkirin replied, manipulating the holographic display to zoom in on the approaching vessels. "And it's unlike anything we've ever seen. The ships, they're from multiple species, including some we thought lost to the unraveling." The command center erupted into a flurry of activity. Captain Alera's fingers flew across her console as she initiated defensive protocols. "Should we power up weapon systems, Colonel?" Hartman held up a hand, his eyes never leaving the display. "Not yet. This could be our first contact with other survivors. Let's not start a war if we can avoid it." He turned to address the team. "Alera, Zalkirin, I want our communication systems at full power. If they're here to talk, we need to be ready. ZYX, work on enhancing the Nexus's defensive capabilities, just in case." As the crew scrambled to carry out their orders, Patrick and Petra stepped forward, their bodies pulsing with blue energy. "Colonel," Patrick said, his voice carrying an otherworldly resonance, "we might be able to help." Hartman nodded, gesturing for them to continue. Petra closed her eyes, connecting deeply with the Nexus. Holographic projections sprang to life around her, displaying complex energy signatures of the approaching fleet. "Many of these ships bear traces of precursor technology," she explained, her eyes snapping open. "They are connected to other Nexus-like structures across the galaxy." Before Hartman could respond, Lyra Nova's voice cut through the tension. "Incoming transmission from the lead ship, Colonel. They're identifying themselves as the Galactic Restoration Alliance." The main view screen flickered to life, revealing a diverse array of alien faces. A being with iridescent skin and eyes like swirling galaxies stepped forward. "Greetings, fellow survivors. I am Zarvox, spokesperson for the Galactic Restoration Alliance. We come seeking unity in our shared goal of reversing the unraveling and rebuilding our shattered cosmos." Colonel Hartman straightened, meeting Zarvox's gaze. "I'm Colonel Hartman of Earth's Siege Ship Initiative. We welcome peaceful contact. Perhaps we could meet face-to-face to discuss our mutual interests?" Zarvox's expression shifted in what might have been a smile. "We would be honored. We'll send a delegation to your coordinates." As the transmission ended, Hartman turned to his team. "Prepare a secure meeting area in one of the new Nexus structures. I want every precaution taken, but let's show our guests that we're open to cooperation." Hours later, the team gathered in a newly formed chamber within the Nexus. The walls pulsed with soft blue light, and holographic displays flickered with data streams. As the Alliance representatives entered, the room fell silent. Leading the group was Zarvox, flanked by beings of various shapes and sizes. Among them was a slender figure with bioluminescent patterns rippling across her skin. She stepped forward, her gaze locked on Patrick and Petra. "I am Lyra the Ethery," she said, her voice melodious and ethereal. "Your connection to the Nexus. It's remarkable. You've achieved a level of integration we've only dreamed of." Patrick and Petra exchanged glances, their circuitry-like patterns glowing in response. "We're still learning to control it," Patrick admitted. As introductions continued, the gravity of the situation became clear. The Alliance had come with a bold proposal: to combine the power of all known Nexus structures across the galaxy, creating a massive restoration pulse to reverse the unraveling's effects. Colonel Hartman leaned forward, his expression grave. "The potential benefits are clear, but what about the risks? An operation of this scale could have unforeseen consequences. Zarvox nodded solemnly. You're right to be cautious. The energy required could potentially create new anomalies or destabilize certain regions. But we believe the risk is worth taking to save countless civilizations. As the negotiations progressed, Patrick and Petra found themselves at the center of attention. Their unique connection to the Nexus allowed them to access its vast database, running complex simulations of the proposed restoration pulse. Holographic models sprang to life around Petra, her eyes projecting intricate galactic structures. Patrick's skin glowed brighter, the circuitry patterns pulsing as he processed vast amounts of data. According to our simulations, Petra reported, her voice echoing with the Nexus's power, the restoration pulse has a 68% chance of success. However, there's a 12% chance of creating new spatial anomalies in the process. The room erupted into heated discussions, weighing the potential salvation of trillions against the risk of further cosmic calamity. As the debate raged on, Lyra approached Colonel Hartman, her expression intense. There might be a way to increase our odds, she said, her voice low. My people possess ancient ethery artifacts that could amplify the Nexus's power. Combined with your precursor technology and the abilities of your Nexus-linked humans, we might be able to minimize the risks. Hartman's eyes narrowed. Why didn't you mention this earlier? Lyra's bioluminescent patterns flickered apologetically. These artifacts are our most closely guarded secret. Revealing their existence is not a decision made lightly. The colonel nodded, understanding the weight of the offer. We'll need time to discuss this. Can you provide more details on these artifacts? As Lyra began to explain, Dr. Rodriguez approached, her face etched with concern. She pulled Hartman aside, speaking in hushed tones. Colonel, I need to brief you on my latest findings regarding Patrick and Petra's condition, she said, her voice tight. Their integration with the Nexus is advancing rapidly. If we proceed with this plan, there's a real possibility they could lose their human identities entirely. Hartman's expression darkened as he processed this new information. He glanced at Patrick and Petra, who were deep in discussion with Zarvox, their bodies pulsing with otherworldly energy. The destiny of the universe now rested on a knife's edge. The promise of restoration warred against the risk of further catastrophe. And at the heart of it all stood Patrick and Petra, their very humanity hanging in the balance. Colonel Hartman took a deep breath, steeling himself for the decision ahead. The negotiations would resume soon, and the course of cosmic history would be set. As he prepared to reconvene the meeting, the weight of untold civilizations pressed upon his shoulders, demanding an answer that could reshape the very fabric of the universe. Universe itself. As Colonel Hartman took a deep breath, preparing to address the assembled representatives, a sudden commotion erupted behind him. He turned to see Patrick and Petra collapse to the ground, their bodies emitting a brilliant blue glow. The room fell silent as the couple writhed on the floor, their faces contorted in pain. Dr. Rodriguez rushed to their side, medical scanner in hand. Their neural activity is off the charts, she reported, her voice tense. It's as if their minds are being overwhelmed by an influx of data. Lyra, the ethery representative, stepped forward, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing with urgency. I can help, she said, producing two small, iridescent objects from a pouch at her waist. These artifacts might stabilize their condition. Colonel Hartman hesitated for a split second, weighing the potential risks against the immediate danger to Patrick and Petra. Do it, he ordered, his voice firm. Lyra knelt beside the convulsing couple and placed an artifact on each of their foreheads. The objects began to glow, their light intermingling with the blue energy emanating from Patrick and Petra's bodies. The room watched in tense silence as the energy surge built to a crescendo, then suddenly dissipated. Patrick and Petra's eyes snapped open simultaneously. They sat up, their appearance now a striking blend of human and alien features. Their skin shimmered with a faint bioluminescence, while their eyes held depths of swirling cosmic patterns. "We've accessed the Nexus's deepest protocols," they said in perfect unison, their voices carrying an otherworldly resonance. The precursors left a failsafe. Zarvox leaned forward, his interest piqued. "What kind of failsafe?" Patrick and Petra stood, their movements fluid and synchronized. "A method for controlled, gradual restoration," Patrick explained. "It will repair the damage caused by the unraveling over time," Petra continued, "without the risks of an instantaneous pulse." Colonel Hartman's mind raced with the implications. "How does it work?" "By activating this protocol," Patrick began, "we can initiate a cascading effect that will slowly heal the galaxy," Petra finished, "minimizing potential negative consequences." The room erupted into excited chatter as the implications sank in. Colonel Hartman raised his hand for silence, then turned to address Zarvox and the other Alliance representatives. "This could be the solution we've been searching for," he said. "A way to restore our galaxy without risking further catastrophe." Zarvox nodded slowly, his galaxy-like eyes swirling with contemplation. "It is a more cautious approach than we had envisioned, but perhaps wisdom lies in patience." The next hours were a flurry of activity as the team coordinated with the Alliance to synchronize the activation of the failsafe protocol across all known Nexus-like structures in the galaxy. Holographic displays flickered with streams of data as Patrick and Petra, their new abilities amplified by the Ethri artifacts, interfaced directly with the Nexus. As the preparations neared completion, Patrick and Petra shared another revelation. "The jungle planet where we first encountered the bioluminescent aliens," Patrick said, his voice filled with wonder. "It was a hidden seed world created by the precursors," Petra continued. "A backup for galactic biodiversity." Dr. Rodriguez's eyes widened. "Of course, that explains the incredible variety of life forms we encountered there." "And why your transformation began on that world," Zalkirin added, his multifaceted eyes gleaming with understanding. As the team absorbed this new information, Colonel Hartman stepped up to the main control panel. "Are we ready?" he asked, looking around the room. Nods of affirmation came from all sides. Patrick and Petra placed their hands on the activation crystals, their bodies pulsing with blue energy. "Initiating failsafe protocol," they announced in unison. The Nexus hummed to life, its energy web pulsing with a soft, rhythmic glow. On the holographic displays, reports began streaming in from across the galaxy, destabilized regions showing signs of healing, fragmented planets slowly reforming, spatial anomalies beginning to dissipate. As the restoration process began its slow, steady march across the cosmos, Colonel Hartman turned to his team. Their faces were a mix of exhaustion and elation, the weight of their accomplishment just beginning to sink in. "We've taken the first step," he said, his voice filled with quiet pride. "But our work is not nearly finished." Captain Alara nodded, her eyes already focusing on the next challenge. "We'll need to coordinate exploration missions to assess the progress of the restoration and establish outposts to assist in the healing process," Zalkirin added. As the team began to discuss their next moves, Dr. Rodriguez approached Patrick and Petra. The couple stood hand in hand, their transformed bodies still adjusting to the new equilibrium between human and alien. "How are you feeling?" she asked, her medical scanner humming as she checked their vital signs. Patrick and Petra exchanged a glance, a silent communication passing between them. "We feel connected," Patrick said, "to each other, to the Nexus, to the very fabric of the universe," Petra added. Dr. Rodriguez nodded, making notes on her datapad. "Your integration with the Nexus has stabilized, but we'll need to monitor you closely as we move forward." As the doctor continued her examination, Colonel Hartman approached, his expression thoughtful. "We're going to need your unique abilities more than ever in the coming months," he said to Patrick and Petra. The couple nodded. Their eyes reflecting the vastness of the cosmos they now felt intimately connected to. "We're ready," they said in unison. With the fail-safe protocol activated and the first signs of galactic healing underway, the team began to prepare for the long journey ahead. The siege ship, once a vessel of last resort, would now become a beacon of hope for countless worlds touched by the unraveling. As they made ready to depart, Patrick and Petra stood before the viewport, watching the pulsing energy web of the Nexus stretch out into the star-studded void. Their transformed bodies glowed softly in the dim light, a physical manifestation of the cosmic change they had set in motion. "Where do we go from here?" Petra asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Patrick squeezed her hand, feeling the energy of the universe flow between them. "Wherever the restoration takes us," he replied. "We have a galaxy to heal." Behind them, the command center bustled with activity as the crew prepared for their next mission. The journey to rebuild their shattered cosmos had only just begun, and countless adventures awaited them in the vast, slowly healing expanse of space.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.